What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It's your boy, Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new live episode of A-Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC television, and movie news, streaming live for you guys today. We got 6 incredible topics that we're going to be diving into, as we're going to dive into the John Wick spin-off film, Caine, as Donnie Yen discusses the idea of possibly directing the brand new film. We got ourselves also a great 28 years later preview for you guys, and some great Star Wars topics we're going to be diving into. All that plus much more, and we'll see you on the other side. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your host, Adam Perez. We're back once again with another Sunday live episode of A-Plus Hero Report. A little bit later than our 11 a.m. start time here, but back certainly nonetheless. Myself, along with my co-host, Stuart Branscombe in the house. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you, man.
Hey, good to see you as well. How have you been?
Pretty good. We got a big week coming up. Me, the girlfriend, and kiddo, our little family are going to head to Georgia on Wednesday to go visit my family. So I'm excited, I'm anxious and nervous all at the same time for my boy to experience what being on the airplane is like. And for like a 2.5-hour flight, it should be interesting to see how he as a toddler handles it. So wish me luck, man. Wish me luck.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I went on an airplane until I was, what is fourth grade, like 10 years old or something. Yeah, I think I was going into fourth grade. That was my very first time. And it wasn't as scary as it seemed like it was going to be in my head.
Yeah, I wonder how a 3-year-old is going to handle the noise. I'm praying that we have ourselves a pretty smooth flight. I'm hoping there's no no storms or anything like that. I hope it's just a nice, calm flight, to certainly say the least. But maybe we'll, I've been trying to figure out how do I keep a toddler busy for 2.5 hours, keep him in a seat. So maybe get him some new toys, maybe get him some things he can focus on. Maybe, we're not really a tablet sort of family, but maybe this is will we pull out the tablet, you know what I mean?
Oh my God. I wish more families were like you. Holy shit. Because I swear that's become like the default for most parents nowadays. It's just I could either watch my kid or I could just give him a tablet and then do whatever.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He does have the TV every now and then for sure. But I was also a TV kid. And look how I turned out, right? I mean, I turned out fine. But no, he doesn't really have his head in the screen a lot of the times. I mean, the TV might be on in the background every now and then. But if not, we've got maybe some music playing, or he's just playing with his toys. And, we try and take like 20, 30 minutes out of the day to practice some. We're practicing some writing right now at 3 years old. So, yeah, 30 minutes a day. So we'll see.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a big difference between, us as kids being TV kids and then kids nowadays being tablet kids. I feel like there's quite a big difference. We were limited, not to mention, our parents could still see what we were doing on the TV compared to you give kids a tablet now. It's like, yeah.
True.
It's something like, it's something I've hated so much about this kind of like upcoming generation is that, they're not being raised by parents anymore. They're being raised by tablets. So it makes me happy to hear that that's not how you're raising your kid. You are one of the great parents that are actually being a parent.
Yeah, no, I'm sure eventually he'll get to the tablet point, especially because I think schools utilize it a lot more these days. So I'm sure eventually he'll get there. But as of right now, we're trying to keep him off of it as much as we possibly can. So this week should be rather interesting. Also, just to give you guys a heads up, the Creature Commandos episode 7 season finale wind up dropping this past week. I did drop my episode review earlier this afternoon for you guys. So if you want to get my thoughts on Creature Commandos, the final episode, it is currently up on our YouTube page. And then this Thursday, I meant to talk to you also, Stuart. This Thursday, I think we are aiming to do the season finale for Skeleton Crew. I know we usually do it on Wednesday evenings, but since I'm going to be flying into Georgia on Wednesday, I kind of want to spend it with my family. So I'm going to move the review to Thursday night, same time, 10 p.m. Central Time, but on Thursday. Hopefully you can join us, Stuart. I hope that's okay.
Yeah. Same bat time, same bat channel, just a different day.
yeah. Though if that works, but yeah, man. So yeah, a lot going on. How's your week been, Stuart? You've been doing pretty good, man.
Oh yeah, it's been a decent week. Work's been slightly brutal with the newest movie called The Brutalist. Funny enough,
Wow,
because it's a long movie,
I hear.
and so like anyone working 2 rounds, it's now working through 2 rounds of I think like when you include the intermission and the trailers, it's 3 hours and 50 minutes, plus like the 30 minutes in between. So it's just a long and tedious shift. But I mean, one thing I'll say is that the people who are watching this movie, I've been looking at some of the tips. They are tipping very, very nice, which is
Nice.
always a bonus. So
Okay.
thank you to all of those seeing the Brutalist at the Alamo Draft House and leaving us a good tip.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Brutalist won a Golden Globe this past week, if I'm not mistaken. I think who is it? Was it Adam Brody? Is that his name? The actor? Andy Brody? I can't remember his name. Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody.
Hmm.
He's in it. But yeah, that's what I heard, that there's actually an intermission kind of built into the film because it's so long. So maybe I'll have to go ahead and check it out because I've heard some good things about it for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll just wait for this one to come home for release because, yeah, 3 hours, 50 minutes in a theater for a movie that I'm not 100% sure if I'll love. I'll just wait till it comes out on home video.
No, I feel you there. We got Wolfman coming out here in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
looking forward to that. Honestly, I still need to catch a couple other films in theaters. Maybe I can go ahead and check something out before I have to head to Georgia. But yeah.
There's also a movie coming to Amazon Prime that I'm kind of intrigued about, but it's just because like I'm super biased as a person who wrestled back in high school. But it's called Unbreakable, and it looks like a fun sports movie. A guy with one leg trying to wrestle, and I
Nice.
think it's based on a true story. And he ends up, of course, doing really good because you wouldn't think it. You would think with like a sport like wrestling, you would need like everything basically to be able to do it. But no, I've both wrestled and seen people who are handicapped wrestle, and yeah, it's kind of amazing how the human body can like really adjust, in a sport like that. It's pretty fascinating. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking this movie out.
Yeah, I saw this incredible story. I don't remember if it was on CBS or what channel it was, about this kid who had like practically no arms. Joined a high school basketball team or something like that.
Wow.
And is like doing amazing. He's like a 3-point shooter and everything. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. Absolutely. Just what like the body can do, and what like really, they always say, you can do anything you set your mind to. Like it's a true it's a true fact for sure, man. Like I've never seen anything like it. It's incredible.
Yeah, I got to check that out.
Guys, look, as we going to go through our show here, we always want to certainly interact with you guys. Remember, at the end of the day, these are simply just our A+ opinions, but we always want to go ahead and know yours. So as we go through these topics, if you want to discuss anything with us, feel free to go ahead and throw your comments in the comment section box or during the live chat, and it's about some conversation and discussion off of us. Let's give some people some love that are watching us here live today, and also, look, if you're in YouTube, if you're watching us from Facebook, if you're watching us over on Twitter, do us a big favor, man. Hit that like button. It doesn't cost you anything. Takes 1 second. And feel free to share these videos if you like. Let people know that we're certainly live right now. But we got Enrique Perez in the house. Hey, Adam, just saw the first look sneak peek. Upcoming Henry Danger, the movie, during Nickelodeon NFL Wild Card Game from Bikini Bottom Broadcast. Oh, man, they're doing the playoffs too. Very cool. I'm so used to them just doing the Super Bowl on Nickelodeon, but I didn't know that they were doing the entire playoffs.
I wonder
Enrique,
if it's because just like more kids are watching football, or the NFL is trying to get kids to start watching at a younger age, so they're paying Nickelodeon a lot more.
it could be, yeah, it could be both. It's confirmed Shrek 5 has delayed its summer release to December 2026, along with the Minions 3 moving to July 26th. Okay. Trailer for DreamWorks animated film Dogman just aired. It'll be hitting theaters January 31st. And then also preview the new series Thundermans undercover series after the NFL Wild Game, and 2-part premiere will air on January 22nd. I never heard of the Thundermans. We got Blossom in the house. What's up, Blossom? Good to see you. as always in here. Johnny, what's up, Johnny? I feel like I haven't seen you in a minute. Hey, what's up, my man? I'm finally back. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you so much for certainly coming through. Ram Jam, always coming through as always, man. Good to see you. For sure. Marshall says, hey, hello, guys. I forgot to ask, since it's the New Year and Christmas is over, did you finally get a chance to watch HBO Max's Santa Inc.? Let me tell you something, Marcelino. I watched the first episode of that. I could not get through it. I could not get through it. I don't know if it was the time of the night, if I was distracted. All I remember, it was like a lot of cursing, and it was just, I don't know. It definitely threw me off. Like I immediately understood why you say, oh yeah, this is not a show for kids. But I tried to watch it, and I just, from the I'm pretty sure I maybe halfway through it, but I just couldn't do it. I mean, it was just so obscene. And I'm not one that's really sensitive to that type of stuff either, but it just feels like it was just a little bit too much. Like I didn't know what the point of the story was going to be at first. So it just didn't really even like capture or grasp my imagination. I want to continue to watch, to be honest with you. So yeah, no, I didn't finish it. I didn't finish the first episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet.
What's up, Sam? Hey guys. Okay, I watched Squid Game season 2 was amazing. Man, me and the girlfriend have been trying to get into season 2. We watched the first episode, great first episode, but by the time we get to watch it, I have this thing where I find myself always busy at night, it feels like, or by the time I put my son down, it's like 10:30, and then I'm trying to like get myself ready for bed, and then by the time I actually hit the bed at like 12 or 11:30, we put something on and I just pass the F out. Like it's so hard for me, maybe because I'm 42 now and I'm just getting older. Like the moment I hit the bed, I'm just like conked out. But I've been trying to get through episode 2. My girlfriend finished it, but I passed out just after the Netflix logo came up, and I was like, I was out. So but as episode 1 was fantastic, so I'm really eager to jump into it. Have you checked it out, Stuart?
Yeah, we finished the entire first season, my fiance and I, like after just 2 days, I think. Nice. Yeah, we were hooked. Mostly like just from the beginning, bringing back the guy from season 1 who recruited everyone, and just kind of like seeing more to him, and then kind of realizing, man, this guy is genuinely a psychopath, and I kind of enjoyed every moment he was on screen. And then I don't want to say it just in case I'm remembering the ending of episode 1 incorrectly, because I don't actually know. I don't think this happened till season 3, or sorry, episode 3 or 4. It didn't end with him going back into the Squid Games, right? Just want to make sure, right?
Was season 1?
Or episode 1 of season 2, the one that you finished?
Oh no, he's not back there yet.
Okay, cool. Then I won't spoil it. All I'm gonna say is that you're gonna be kind of blown away. Then they do the Alfred Hitchcock thing of they tell us, the audience, something really big about what's gonna happen about like the Squid Games. You don't know how it's gonna impact it, but you know that something big is like a part of the Squid Games now. But the main character doesn't. You know more than the main character, and that's what kind of makes like the rest of the season really fascinating, because you know something is gonna metaphorically explode, but you don't know when, and you don't know how.
Okay, all right. I'll have to. I definitely want to finish it off. I think it's only like 7 episodes or something like that. But I am eager to go ahead and get into it. What else do we got? Marcelino says the main problem is that Santa Inc. is called that. It had a great ideas, but it relied itself way too much on cursing and nudity. It also doesn't help that none of the characters are likable. Yeah, I just couldn't like the cursing was just an overabundance. Like I just didn't find the need for all of it. Especially when I have no idea what the story's going on. It's just rude to be rude, like I couldn't do it, man. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's the type of humor where it's like you'll get a cheap chuckle out of me every now and then, but it's not going to get me to laugh out loud or anything.
Yeah, it's just too much. Johnny, are you thrilled about Sonic Film Trilogy being a $1 billion franchise? That's crazy. Yeah, that is exciting. That is exciting. Yeah. I can see why they want to do a 4th film.
Also, I love what you did with the hearts. Blue, like Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Shadow. That's cool.
Very nice, Johnny. All right, guys. Let's get into our first segment of the day. And if you're not familiar with honorable mentions, pretty much just stories that we felt you guys certainly deserve to know about, but didn't necessarily make our top 6 topics for the day. But we wanted to go ahead and keep you guys up to date. Stuart, did you have any honorable mentions for us today by any chance?
Um, Not really. So I figure, is it cool if I just give my thoughts on the Creature Commando season finale?
Yes. Give me your thoughts.
So I think that overall as a show, it was really entertaining, pretty good. And I think that James Gunn really shows his strengths when it comes to character development, especially like when it came to a lot of the flashback episodes. I think that's when the story was like at its strongest, was when it came to the background of all the characters. My complaint, however, is when it came to like kind of the reveal. Like, it kind of feels like James Gunn had like a few more episodes planned out before ending it. But then, like, out of left field, he was told, oh, by the way, James Gunn, we want you to write the Superman movie. And so he just wrapped it up as soon as he could, because the plan at the end makes no sense when you think about it for 2 seconds, in terms of like the princess having Clayface pretend to be the professor, so that way they can make it seem like the professor was lying when she said that, you know, you could trust Cersei. But it's like, if that was the case, then why did they have the professor as Clayface say that Cersei is 100% legit, when the only way that they would have figured it out then, or they would have suspected otherwise, is if they investigated, which they had no reason to do at that point. The only reason Rick Flag Sr. did was because he's clearly a simp, as we kind of see in this show. And so yeah.
So the bride does clarify that.
Oh, she does.
She does. She says that Clayface switched himself out after the meeting because because they knew that they were gonna investigate Cersei, and because of the fact that the princess made Rick Flag the simp and that Rick Flag wasn't gonna believe her, that's why she hired Clayface to go and kill her and pretend to be because they knew that he was going to investigate.
So she was just that confident that Rick Flags was just that much of a simp that he was gonna. Okay, got it. Okay, that makes a little more sense then.
Yeah, that's what I was under the impression. I think that's what I remember her saying. I watched the episode a couple times, and I believe they said that because it was true. Cersei's vision was true, and that's why the doctor was like, 9 times out of 10, she's usually pretty good about what she's doing. So the intel from the doctor was correct, but then she wanted to go ahead and switch out Clayface with the doctor because she knew that Rick Flag was going to investigate.
So I'm curious if this will be brought up later, but Rick Flags is really easy to compromise, apparently. Yeah, so I wonder if that'll be a weakness that we see in either Superman or Baker season 2 later.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if we're gonna have any live action characters from Creature Commandos make their way into Peacemaker. But I would love to hear the rest of any other thoughts for the season finale, though.
Oh, yeah, just that, like, yeah, when it came to, again, the other, like, the story other than the plot, like when it came to Nina's backstory, I thought that was really cool. I also like had kind of a theory in my head, like one of the bullies for her in high school kind of reminded me of a young Oliver Queen, which makes me think, Oliver is meant to be kind of a douchebag before he becomes the Green Arrow. I could see him as being kind of a bully at one point, and then, as an adult completely regretting it. So that'd be kind of funny if they explored that later on. And yeah, just like that whole backstory was super emotional. And I think that, again, all of them in some way, shape, or form, even Dr. Phosphorus, who, like, they kind of show at this point is like so far gone, like he's like not the same person he was. You still can't help but feel a little bit sad for how he got there, even if there's no justification for how he is now. Obviously, I think the only exception for all these backstories was Frankenstein, who is so bad of a person that he's kind of my favorite character because of it. It's like one of the few times I've seen James Gunn actually make like that type of character a main character, because usually he saves those for like the villains, the main antagonists. But it's so funny seeing that kind of a character as a main character in a James Gunn project. And I guess it's just because now he's in charge, so he doesn't have to deal with any restrictions. He's allowed to just like let bad guys be straight up bad guys, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, if I had a con to this episode, it was the idea that the meeting between Frankenstein and the Bride was a little bit anticlimactic for me, based off of how they built it up all season long, sort of thing. So I would have liked to have gone a completely different way. But I would totally agree with you. I think walking out of here, the Bride and Frankenstein are definitely my two favorite characters. And I'm like, I think David Harbour just does such a great job of like allowing himself to be very much this hopeless romantic, but also a psychopath at the same time. That's just like, how do you balance those two? But he does it so incredibly well. Like when he's on the screen, he's unstable to the point to where you literally don't know who's safe. You know, you don't know if he's gonna kill this person, if he's gonna let them go, sort of thing. He's just that twisted, and yet he's a hopeless romantic. It's pretty effing crazy, dude.
And then you saw the after credit scene, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She must still love me. Why else would she put 6 bullets in me?
I mean, my God. Oh, wait, there was an after credit scene?
Oh, wait, you didn't see that? Yeah,
no.
that was it. It was just like a little joke. It wasn't like setting anything up, but yeah.
That's so crazy. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. Because I stopped just once the credits hit. I didn't even think that there was an after credit scene. But if you watch my review, there is a part in there where I was like, Frankenstein's got to be alive. He's got to come back for like a season 2. And I was like, leave it up to Frankenstein to be the person that's just be like, she must love the chase or some stupid shit like that, right? Like, I knew he was gonna think that, and the fact that oh my God, that's so crazy to me.
Yep, the after credits scene definitely confirms your theory.
Oh God.
He's like, James Gunn saw your review and he was like, oh man, I need to go back in time and add this into the episode.
I was like, she just loves the chase. Like, oh my God, I knew he wasn't gonna I knew it wasn't gonna register with him at all.
Yep.
But yeah, guys, check out the Creature Commandos episode 7 review if you haven't done so yet. And if you haven't seen Creature Commandos in full, let me know your thoughts in the comment section box below for sure. Couple quick honorable mentions for you guys. Scream 7 is currently in production. Filming has begun for the next entry of Scream 7. We also have an announcement for a Holes television series from Holes television series. Variety reported in an exclusive report, a Holes TV series has been ordered to pilot at Disney Plus. It says the potential show would be based off the book of the same name, which was adapted into a film back in 2023. It is just one book, right? It's not like a series of books, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I actually read the book. It's one book, and I honestly don't know why they're even bothering to make it into a show, because the movie was the perfect, and I mean like almost like to a T perfect adaptation of the book. The only there's 2 big differences that I could see. One, Stanley Yelnats, of course, is played by Shia LaBeouf, so he's not fat like he is in the book. But I think, but they did say behind the scenes it was because, like, in the book, he starts out fat when he goes to camp, but then he loses weight and eventually kind of becomes a bit skinnier. And they didn't want to hire a kid who was overweight and then force him to kind of lose weight for the movie. Plus, it would limit their film time. So it was just a practical reason why they didn't do it, which I totally get. And then the other thing, of course, because it's a kids movie, some of the language, especially during the flashback scenes, are a lot toned down. The racial slurs that are in the flashbacks were a lot harsher in the book, obviously, but in the kids movie, it was watered down for obvious reasons. But other than those 2 things, it's one of the most accurate adaptations of a book you'll ever see. So it's why I get why they did it with Percy Jackson, why they did it with the Golden Compass, because both of them had movie adaptations that just couldn't capture the book. And it makes sense that going the TV route with those was the right direction. But you already have a perfect adaptation, so why make a TV show? I don't think you'll be able to add anything that the movie didn't already do. So I might be wrong, but right now I'm definitely not super excited for Scream 7. The thing that I will see it. Don't get me wrong. I of course love the Scream franchise, so I will still see it. But I am kind of disappointed that both the main actresses from the previous 2 films aren't going to be in this, because it felt like there was just one piece of their story that hadn't been wrapped up yet, and it felt like that's where they were originally going to go with Scream 7, and that's the thing with their mother, because I feel like they were really setting it up so their mother was going to be the killer in the next Scream movie, or at the very least, she was going to be a red herring in the next movie. And in some way, shape, or form, she was going to play a part because of just the way they kind of build up the rocky relationship they had with her. And yeah, it sucks that that's never going to get addressed now.
Scream 8, Stuart. Scream 8. Don't worry.
Yeah, maybe that's when they bring them both back, and then suddenly you have like all you get Sydney and the 2 original girls back.
Yeah, maybe Sydney's story will somehow connect into that story, and then they all combine like one giant cinematic universe for Scream 8. Yeah,
exactly.
It'll be their end game for sure.
Oh, and then Shaggy comes back. That theory that he survived the TV falling on his head, it turns out to be true.
Yeah, Scream 8. It's all coming together, y'all. Also, Coleman Domingo. He's actually going to be doing the voice work for Norman Osborn in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. He lands the game show host role in the upcoming Edgar Wright's reimagining of The Running Man. According to Deadline.com, he's been tapped after tapping Glenn Powell to play the main title role in the new Running Man movie. Edgar Wright has now cast the TV show host with Coleman Domingo landing the role. The film is based on a 1982 Stephen King novel, but there was an Arnold Schwarzenegger film back in 1987. If you guys haven't had the opportunity to check that one out. But yeah, Coleman Domingo has been cast in that role. There was also we also have a Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima, if I'm pronouncing that right. Wasn't that a video game?
Yeah.
There's an anime in the works from Crunchyroll. This is from, I don't know who pronounced this, but it says announced during Sony Group Corporation's presentation. The anime will be based on Sucker Punch Productions' hit game, Ghost of Tsushima. Specifically, it's Ghost of Tsushima Legends multiplayer expansion that was released in 2020. The anime will exclusively premiere on Crunchyroll sometime in 2027. So yeah, it's coming from directed by somebody that did one of the Star Wars Visions episodes.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, if you guys are a big fan of the video game, it's gonna get an anime in 2027.
Cool. I've never seen The Running Man, but I might want to now because I love me some Edgar Wright, so he can almost do no wrong.
Yeah,
so
I mean, when I heard
check it out.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I saw clips and moments from the Arnold Schwarzenegger film years ago because it came out in the 80s. I don't know if I actually sat down and watched it fully to comprehend it all when I was younger. But you say Edgar Wright, and I'm usually there, so I'm probably gonna give it a shot for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then last but not least, we have an update. Hector David Jr., former Power Ranger star from Power Rangers Samurai, pleads guilty to battery. He's going to get 45 days behind bars. If you guys recall, we did post a video up here of him assaulting a senior man, pushing him down in the grocery outside in the parking lot of a grocery store. And he had a mugshot and everything. And here it is. It says Power Rangers actor Hector David Jr. is cooling his heels behind bars as he pled guilty and was sentenced on Wednesday for assaulting a man in Idaho last year. He's been pled guilty to misdemeanor battery and was sentenced to 180 days in jail, according to new legal documents. The judge suspended 135 days of sentence, meaning he only has to serve 45 days, but will have to keep his nose clean when he gets out to avoid further time behind bars. He's placed him under 2 years of supervised probation in order him to also complete 100 hours of community service.
I think that community service should be, working at a retirement home.
For real.
Having to, wipe shit from older people, It's like, maybe learn to fucking respect your elders now.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. So he's definitely doing the time for the crime. But yeah, that will do it for our honorable mentions. Sam says it will be same as Harry Potter reboot TV series, HBO Max. I guess he's talking about holes. Where at least with Harry Potter though, you got several books to go ahead and break down, and the adaptation to movie, while I certainly appreciated it, I definitely know that there are plenty of people out there who were big Harry Potter book fans that were disappointed that certain scenes and aspects of the books didn't quite make the series itself, didn't make the movie itself. So I do see it in a different route here, the Harry Potter reboot TV series. But I get the idea what you're saying in regards to at least being adapted from a novel. But I do look at them completely differently, though.
Yeah, because I know like Order of the Phoenix is definitely a big one that Harry Potter fans. It's not that they didn't like the movie; it's that they like were disappointed by how much of the book had to get cut because it's a huge book.
Yeah, absolutely. Enrique says felt so sorry about Hector. He's my favorite Power Rangers heroes. Yeah, he wasn't very heroic this time though. Blossom 45 days. Oh, just as well. I sure hope he does learn his lesson though. Yeah, I hope he does. I hope he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. I'm trying to think if there's anything else before we continue on. If I do for some reason drop out, Stuart, feel free to take over for me while I try and come back, just in case if my my camera goes bonkers on me today. But other than that, guys, let's get into some main topics. You ready to tackle these topics with me, Stuart?
Always.
Let's go ahead and kick off this episode, man. As you guys saw at the top, we got John Wick in the news today. We also got a 28 years later preview. We got some Ahsoka and other Star Wars talk for you guys. So it should be a good show, to certainly say the least. So let's go ahead and kick off with our main topic, man. Donnie Yen is back in the news, y'all. John Wick, a spin-off film. We had announced a while back that there were talks about the idea of Donnie Yen getting his own movie, continuing to play the character from John Wick 4 in Caine and getting his own spin-off film. But now we have further development in regards to that becoming more and more a reality, especially as we go into 2025 and really get our first spin-off film in Ballerina. I think this is going to be what really sort of sets the tone kind of going forward for the rest of the John Wick universe. The idea of Keanu Reeves coming back as John Wick. I mean, I've heard from interviews, Keanu Reeves says he would love to come back, but he doesn't know if his knees can do it anymore. And considering all the stunts that he's been doing and things like that, and as he continues to get older, I certainly don't blame him. But it doesn't seem as though they're the type that will do a John Wick 5 just because the other one made money. I think from a story standpoint, I think they're trying to do their best on certainly holding back. And so while they have certainly established a fantastic world of John Wick, it will come down to see how well this franchise can certainly continue without him as the main character. And we do get other characters in here like the ballerina or even maybe Caine kind of taking the spotlight. And so we do have an update for you guys directly from Donnie Yen himself, Stuart, talking about the idea that he may actually take over and helm the film as the director, which probably shouldn't come as a surprise because I feel like Donnie Yen's certainly more than a capable filmmaker. I believe he's done his own directing work in the past as well, so that probably shouldn't surprise many people. But this comes to us from Collider. Oops. This comes to us from Collider. Donnie Yen in talks to direct John Wick spinoff featuring his character. This is an exclusive report here. Actually, let me try and pull this back up here. Just be on the safe side.
Actually, this looks like it might be his directorial debut because I'm looking on his IMDb page and I can't see any anything that he's directed under here.
I thought he directed this film called The Prosecutor. Did he not direct that?
Not that I could see. It says maybe he produced it. Oh yeah, he produced it though. He's got 17 productions that he's produced under his belt. But
okay,
nothing directed yet.
All right. Correct me for sure. It says an exclusive interview, Steve Weintraub, while promoting his latest movie, The Prosecutor, Yen revealed that not only is he set to reprise his role, but there's a strong possibility he might direct the project himself. Adding fuel to the fire, Weintraub shared that John Wick director Chad Stahelski himself mentioned Yen's potential involvement behind the camera. Yen was flattered, also expressed the weight of responsibilities with such as opportunity would bring. It is true, he confirms. He says, I think both the fans as well as the studio want this to happen, and we'll see. I don't know, Steve. I can only tell you that much, but yes, we are talking, and we are talking intimately. We'll see what happens. He says, but at the same time, I hold responsibility as well as a pressure that I don't want to ruin the franchise. I try to do my best to bring something fresh to the franchise itself. I don't want to bring down the expectations for the fans. I try to do my best, like always. But see, this is what I think threw it off for me. He says Donnie Yen believes the prosecutor is a showcase of his directing skills. He says while Yen's directing credits may not be as well known as the stunning achievements he's made on screen, he is certainly no amateur when it comes to working behind the camera, having directed action. Okay, maybe that's what it is. Maybe directing action in films like 1988's Tiger Cage and making his feature film debut in Legend of the Wolf. Speaking with his latest directorial effort, The Prosecutor, Yen reflected on how the project served as a platform to showcase his skills. He says, hold on one second. Make sure I got this right. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go. It says the film is a thriller set in Hong Kong and inspired by an actual legal case focusing on Fok Chi-ho, a former police detective turned public prosecutor who becomes convinced of a young man's innocence in a drug trafficking case. Although the defendant admits his guilt, Fok makes the bold choice of risking his career and life to uncover the truth and bring the real perpetrators to justice. This is what he told Collider. He says, I do feel that the prosecutor is giving me a fair chance of showing what type of director I am and the potential of me being a director. Because although in comparison to the Hollywood standard, it's not a huge budget. We shot it for under 25 million. It's still a lot more than my first movie when I shot for $500,000, and I dedicated myself. I didn't do anything else. I spent a whole year doing this movie. So to be fair, I think this really represents what kind of director I am. Yen was quick to clarify that in any involvement in John Wick spinoff would be approached with the same meticulous care and passion. I have to flesh it out. I have a couple of ideas in mind of how I would like the story to go, but we'll see. I don't want to give away too much because I don't know if I'm in that position to give that away, but they've been very persistent and they've been very passionate about me taking on this project. Weintraub also pointed out that many in the action community would want to work with such a legendary figure on a movie like this, to which Yen responded enthusiastically, adding that he fully hoped and expected Stileski to be on hand for help and guidance. He better be. He says, I want to make sure it's going to be a lot of fun. My attempt is to try and make something that won't disappoint the fans and the general audience. So yeah, his prosecutor film set to go ahead and drop was released on January 10th. So if you guys want to find some way to find it, you're certainly more than welcome to. So now, whether or not it sounds like the prosecutor is his directorial debut in a sense, or maybe he's still doing just the action sequences for it. That I certainly don't know, but I am fascinated in this choice here for Donnie Yen to go ahead and take on a directorial role. Look, man, if I could be honest, I really love the sound of this, Stuart. I truly do. It is one of those things where Donnie Yen has so much experience, especially at least when it comes to action sequences, and just being in action films himself. I mean, he's certainly a legend when it comes to the action community. Certainly up there with people like Jackie Chan and Jet Li in regards to sort of like modern day martial arts. I mean, Donnie Yen is certainly up there, and so. Well, I personally haven't seen John Wick 4 yet. Unfortunately, me and the girlfriend were going to try and watch it yesterday, but she wanted to see a scary movie instead. But even though I haven't had the opportunity to see his character in Caine, I do think that he would be a marvelous choice in regards to directing this film. You know, it is a task in and of itself of not only directing, but also being the main character in your movie and having to go from behind the camera to in front of the camera and then back again in order to kind of see if you need to recut things or take another stab at it, sort of thing. So it is certainly a challenge, but I think what's really appealing to me in here is that he says that they're almost adamant to have him do it. You know, like it's not just him wanting to be the one that's like, I'm sure he cares about the character, but he's not the one that's like at the forefront asking or demanding or really, wishing to kind of get this position. It's more or less the idea that they know how much of a legend that he is. They know how great he is to this character. And now him being part of the John Wick family, being part of John Wick 4, why not? And so I love the fact that there's enthusiasm and people around him that really want to make this happen for him. And I think, if anything, that puts him in a really great position to kind of accept this job in this and this directorial position here. So I really hope it comes to fruition. It's something I definitely would love to see. Again, I need to go back and actually check out John Wick 4, but you tell me Donnie Yen, along with the help of Chad Stileski, to maybe come in and help maybe add some of that John Wick flavor to it a little bit. I don't even necessarily know if Donnie Yen needs help in the action sequence department, but just from a point of view of getting the John Wick isms down in this film, him and Chad, I think, would make an incredible film. So I'm more than confident that this would certainly work out, Stuart, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree. I definitely got to check out The Prosecutor now, knowing that he not only is in it, obviously, which is cool on its own, but the fact that he actually helps to direct a lot of the action sequences in it also kind of gets me excited to watch it. But yeah, I've always loved him as like an actor who really loves to do his own fighting stunts. And I think that when you know that much about the industry in terms of like how to really pull off a good fight choreography scene, if you've done it enough times, I do think at that point, you get to a point where you've seen it done so many times, you eventually get ready to direct it yourself, once you've been taught enough. And so I think that, just looking at how many projects he's been in, having not seen The Prosecutor, I can already say, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if this guy were to make a really good director. So yeah, I kind of hope this actually ends up happening. It'd be nice to see the John Wick world getting expanded with different directorial visions and all that. So like
Yes.
every time a new director kind of takes over, while it still has that awesome, that great momentum with the fight scenes that you know and love from all the other John Wick movies, it can still give us something new with a few other kind of factors in terms of like maybe tone, in terms of lighting and that kind of stuff. So I would be kind of curious to see what the world of John Wick would look like in his kind of vision. I think that'd be really cool. And plus, I do like hearing that it's not just him that wants to direct it. It sounds like the studio itself also is thinking that this might be a good idea. Whether or not it's because like they actually believe in his vision, or they think, oh, this guy hasn't had a real directorial debut under his IMDb, so we can lowball him. I hope that's not the case, but I know that tends to be some of the things that studios will look at. Hey, how much or how little money can we give this person? Whoever lowballs us gets it. So I hope that's not the case. But I think that even if that were, though, he probably could still make a kick-ass movie with whatever the studio gives him. So yeah, I think this sounds really cool. I really look forward to seeing what the future of John Wick spinoffs are going to look like with the ballerina, and then after that with his character, because yeah, he was a great character in John Wick 4. I don't want to say too much. All I'm going to say is that much like every character that John Wick comes across, who has a backstory with John Wick, my question is always, what is their story? I need to know.
Yeah, I definitely want to check out this movie even more now in regards to John Wick 4. Because clearly, like you said, there certainly is a connection in this backstory there, and I would be really eager to kind of learn what that is. And I also find it fascinating too. I'm glad you brought up the idea of him, the idea of like these spin-off films allowing these directors to kind of have their own vision. It would be nice to kind of see, I don't want to say the ballerina feels like a John Wick movie, and I'm sure there's some aspects of these spin-off films that will feel like a John Wick movie, but I do wonder if Donnie Yen has a completely different tone and vibe to the movie that he wants to bring. Like maybe the action pieces feel a little bit more John Wick, and maybe once you get to like the actual character and emotional aspects, maybe they have a completely different sort of vision behind them. That's something I definitely would love to kind of see. And I do like the idea too of I don't know if he would be the writer of this film or not, but clearly as a director, your vision would certainly shine through. I would be interested to kind of see what ideas that he certainly has in regards to, especially with him playing this particular character. What he envisions as kind of Caine's backstory, what his upbringing was like. And so I think the idea of Donnie Yen being able to be very relatable with this character, feel a connection to him, and the point of wanting to kind of take over to not only direct, but maybe give some ideas. I would be curious to see who they wind up bringing in to actually write this film as well, because I don't believe that there's a writer attached to it as of yet. But as far as the directorial directing this film, absolutely. I think he's got the chops for it, at least when it comes to the acting department. And I definitely, like you said, I definitely want to check out the prosecutor and see just how he directs a film entirely for himself. We got Marcelino in the comments says, glad the Akira and Caine spinoff is moving forward. All we know is the Sophia spinoff and maybe the crossover with Nobody and Atomic Blonde.
So the crossover with nobody, that's a real thing, because I remember hearing whispers of that, but like nothing more than whispers, really.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything as far as them being all in the same world, but maybe I'm tripping. Sam says, I'd like to see John Wick's family history in the film. That might be interesting. But yeah, I'm really eager to revisit any of these characters from the John Wick franchise. Honestly, if they get the opportunity to expand it, they've got a really good story, an impactful story behind these characters individually. Certainly, why not? But I think Donnie Yen is more than capable of this. So yeah, bring it on, man. I'm excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. Would you like to see Donnie Yen direct his Caine spinoff film? Do you have any other directors in mind that you certainly would like to? I think the idea of Chad sticking on as like creative consultant and the creative architect for this is extremely important. I don't know if I would want Chad to direct anything else though that isn't a John Wick movie, if that makes sense. Maybe the action sequences for some of the spin-off films in the future if he wants to, but I do like the idea of having fresh visions certainly in this world, because not every character has the same emotional and story beats that John Wick did, and I think it's only fair that the directors get the opportunity to share what their visions are for a lot of these characters inside of his sandbox, if you will.
Definitely.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. And with that out of the way, Stuart, we will move on to our next topic. And we are going to get into the world of 28 years later, baby. This is my number 2 most anticipated movie of 2025. Just eagerly anticipating the hell out of this, Stuart. I really felt like I've been waiting 28 years for this movie to certainly drop, for sure, especially after 28 weeks later. Even though Danny Boyle and Alex Garland didn't do the sequel, I still find it quite enjoyable, honestly. And it's one that I definitely want to see how this world has evolved over time, to say the least. And we're finally getting it, ladies and gentlemen. We got ourselves the first trailer for it several weeks back. Chilling, terrifying, really eager to see what they wind up creating in here. And this is the first time, I think, that we're really going to get an inside look in regards to this film overall. As Empire Magazine this week wind up dropping 3 articles in regards to it, and I definitely expect to see more as we get closer to the release. But so we wanted to go ahead and give you guys a breakdown of some of the things that some of the producers, some of the directors, and the writers are certainly talking about when it comes to 28 years later, and kind of pick your brains at the same time, Stuart. So let's dive into this, man. The first one I do want to get off real quick is just to clarify for everybody, because I think a lot of us thought that this was Cillian Murphy. It has been confirmed, if this ad would get out of the way, that Cillian Murphy isn't in the first 28 years later film, but he may appear later in the trilogy, they said. So that's that walking zombie that a lot of us thought, hey, that looks like Cillian Murphy. Just so we know, that's not Cillian Murphy. It says the internet at large was convinced they spotted Cillian in the 28 years later trailer. Danny Boyle's original 2002 horror, 28 Days Later, followed Murphy's Jim, freshly awoken from a coma to an entirely abandoned London as she traversed the rage-infected remains of the UK. And since Boyle and the original writer Alex Garland are back on board, word has long swirled that Murphy, too, will pop up in the new film. So when the new teaser for 28 Years Later dropped, featuring one of the emaciated infected with a haircut you could charitably describe as Peaky Blinders-esque and prominent cheekbones, the World Wide Web did its thing. That had to be Cillian Murphy, except it wasn't. So the producer actually confirms here to Empire he actually isn't in 28 Years Later, or at least not in the first film. So this is what he says. He says, on this, we wanted him to be involved, and he wanted to be involved. He is not in the first film, but I'm hoping there will be some Jim somewhere along the line. He's involved at the moment as an executive producer, and I would hope we can work with him in some way in the future in the trilogy. That could mean in the upcoming sequel, which was already shot, 28 Days Later, The Bone Temple, due in 2026, or in the third film, which will move ahead if the first film hits with audiences. She said, they said kudos isn't just due to extra Angus Neal, the man who inadvertently set the internet alight. Some should also go to Danny Boyle's partner, who had tried to warn him that the audience would see Neal and assume that they'd spotted Jim. He said, I showed my girlfriend the trailer, and she said, people will think that's Cillian. And the director said, don't be silly. So he ignored her. He says, so I've eaten a bit of humble pie since then. And that's the gentleman right there. What's his name? Angus Neal, the actor that's people mistaken for Cillian Murphy, but that's not Cillian.
That's so funny. So like I assumed at the very least that he intentionally wanted people to think that was Cillian Murphy. I didn't realize that was actually like not the intent at all. I thought like at the very least he was trying to get people to go, oh, was it him? I didn't think for sure it was him. I just thought like for sure they wanted us to think it was. So that's funny. That's really funny to know.
Yeah, his girlfriend tried to warn him, and he's like, whatever, girl.
No one's gonna think that's Cillian Murphy. People are smarter than that. You overestimate the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stupidity.
Yeah, absolutely. We take anything and run with it, man.
Exactly.
We also got Danny Boyle, the director in here, or the writer, talking about it. Let me go ahead and bring this up here. Talking about the film a little bit too. The title of this article is 28 Years Later Takes a Wholly Different Approach to the Infected, says Danny Boyle. Let's see here. After years of noodling around the possible ideas for where 28 could go next, Garland eventually came to Boyle with the version he wanted to make. It was a wholly different approach, Boyle tells Empire. It was about what the 28 years gives you, notably a very different state of affairs. 28 days later depicted the early days of the outbreak. Even 28 weeks later only moved the story forward around 6 months. But in 28 years later, Britain's struggling survivors, the rest of the globe remains relatively unaffected, leaving the UK to fend for itself, have learned to live in a full-on post-apocalyptic world. That's kind of crazy to me, Stuart, that the rest of the world is not infected by this or is completely unaffected. It does make me wonder, like, how the global stage views the UK then. I hope that there's some level of like news reports or whatever the case may be that get brought up in regards to how other countries kind of view Britain, considering the fact that the rest of the world is unaffected, just leaving them to themselves.
I imagine, people in other countries going, fake news.
But you might be right, bro. You might be right. Maybe you think there's like a big conspiracy theory around it. Like, why is there no flights to the UK ever, guys? Yeah,
They're going
that's
to
kind
be
of crazy.
like, yeah, the claim is going to be, oh, obviously it's just because the UK just wants us all out because they're being selfish, clearly.
Wow.
And they fake this whole virus.
Wow. Here, Aaron Taylor Johnson's Jamie, along with Jodie Comer's Isla and their 12-year-old son Spike, are part of a community on Holy Island, aka Lindisfarne, connected to the UK mainland by a causeway only briefly accessible when the tide recedes each day. He says it's a closed and necessarily very tight community. There are very strict defensive laws, obviously, to survive that long in what is effectively an ongoing hostile environment. They've created a successful community as they see it. It soon comes time for young Spike to take a rite of passage trip beyond the safety of Lindisfarne to open his eyes to the true state of the nation. Needless to say, things don't go to plan. And they say that's just the beginning. What becomes of the three of them and the rest of the UK is said to be depicted across an entire trilogy, beginning with Boyle's 28 years later and continuing into Nia DaCosta's 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which is already shot, and then culminating in the third Boyle helmed entry. So it's like Danny Boyle's going to go ahead and direct the third one also, which won't go into production until audiences respond to the first film. He says, for screenwriter Garland, the trilogy is no cash grab, but purely story driven. He says, this is very narratively ambitious. Danny and I understood that. We tried to condense it, but its natural form felt like a trilogy. Get ready then for an infected epic. He says, you just don't get to do a story on this scale in this country. To do something in Britain that feels like it has this size, it's great. What do you take away from that, Stu?
Well, I feel like this is something you hear people say all the time, and whether or not they mean it, you just got to wait for the final product to make your own judgment on that. I hope he's being sincere when he says this, and I look at the trailer, and it definitely looks like something that they're not trying to make for marketing purposes. They're not trying to make seem like appealing to a wider audience, because if they were going for that, I feel like they would have tried to put a lot more like action in there or something. So it really does seem like they are trying to just tell a good story over the course of 3 movies. And I hope it's as good as they're claiming that it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I mean, I guess for me, if I assume that this was a cash grab, I felt like they probably would have made another 28 something later with like a completely different director and writer on board.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the idea that you bring back Danny Boyle and Alex Garland is a big statement. I think it was just Alex Garland that I just watched Civil War. I think he did Civil War, the most recent movie. I didn't mind that film too much. I had my issues with it, to certainly say the least. But if this is Alex Garland and Danny Boyle really getting back into their bag and having the story that is just so expansive that they felt it needed to be broken down into a trilogy, you know, I'm definitely going to give it a time of day. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie where Alex Garland has kind of phoned it in. I feel like all of his stories have some sort of meaning or message behind them, something that he definitely wants to tell the viewers. And so I look at this as really exciting. I love the idea too that while they have the first 2 films already shot, they're waiting before they do the third film. I think that definitely gives them opportunities after the first one is seen. I don't want to say to course correct, but to see what works and what certainly doesn't. And if they feel like, I have a feeling that if anything, they probably already have the third film already written. But maybe the opportunity for them to make any corrections or go in different paths based off of how people are reacting to certain characters or whatever the case may be. So I do love the idea that they are allowing themselves some time to make changes if need to, and also hear from the audience, but also the commitment to the trilogy in the sense of they already have the second film, the second movie filmed and in post-production right now. So I think that shows their confidence in the story that they certainly want to tell. But I kind of dig the concept here too of this being sort of like a rite of passage story. When I look at the trailer, I think to myself, if this is a story about a mother, son, and the wife, the mother, son, and the husband, I don't recall many shots in the trailer with like all three of them together. I usually see the son with either the father or the son with either the mother, and it does make me a little bit worried. Like, does one or the other even make it out of this first film? And I think that's one of the things that I loved about just a 28 whatever later franchise is that it is always unpredictable in the sense that you really never know who's going to bite the dust or fall victim to the rage virus, if you will. And so the idea of their community being cut off due to the tides, I think is really smart to be able to keep yourself away from the infected, or from the infected being able to get to you when they need to. So I'm really fascinated to see what this world has turned into, and the idea of this son who has clearly been enclosed off from the rest of the world his whole life, and now get an opportunity to kind of learn the truth. It's almost like a really effed up coming of age story for this kid, and that really kind of fascinates me.
It's a coming of age version of The Village in a way, except for instead of it being just like an isolated town, it's like, an isolated country with zombies.
Yeah, absolutely. So it certainly has my attention, man. I really love that article, giving us a little bit more insight in regards to what we can expect from the film itself. And we have one more article here from Empire that gives us a little bit more of a glimpse of one of the characters that we wind up seeing in the trailer. I don't think I posted this one or sent this one to you, Stuart. So I do apologize, but this is another one here for us. Ralph Fiennes plays a survivor with out their views on the world. I think you guys can recall him from the trailer also very briefly in what looked to be like that bone temple, or you see him at least in front of the skulls behind him. What it all means, who certainly knows, but let's go ahead and dive into this one also. Let's see here. It says that they also will have not just the Holy Island community that plays home to some of our characters, but other mysterious figures. Take, for instance, Ralph Fiennes, Dr. Kelson, a physically imposing figure who play a part in both this year's 28 Years Later and Nia DaCosta's follow-up to 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. It says, with his stark appearance, bloodied visage, and the proximity to that towering structure of skulls, place your bets now on whether Kelson will be friend or foe. Ralph says he's a survivor, and the way he survived is very interesting. He's quite out there in his views of the world, but maybe don't rely on your first impressions. He says, I think audiences will assume something about him and then see where it goes from there, the actor teases.
I love characters like that.
He says, well, while he'll appear in Boyle's first film in the year's trilogy, Fiennes reveals that Kelson will play a much bigger role in the next one. So expect the mystery of his true nature to rumble in on DaCosta's entry. He strides forward into the second film in an enormous way, where the question of what he's after and what he wants to do gets fully resolved. Buckle up, everyone. The Doctor is in. What were you saying, Stuart?
Oh, just that, when you get characters that are very much like out there, and that you can have one judgment about them when you first see them, but then like have a complete 180 later on down the movie. I love when a character like that is written right. Like, I think Peacemaker is probably a good example of that type of character. Like, the way you see him in Suicide Squad is very different than the way you see him by the end of his own TV series. And I think Ralph Fiennes is a great actor for that type of a character role, definitely.
Yeah, I do like Ralph Fiennes. I was hoping I was pronouncing his name correctly or not, but yeah, I am curious as to what these skulls are. I wonder if these are like all his patients, or people that he's like worked on or tried to save, but he unfortunately couldn't. And maybe now he's got like some twisted perspective of I'm just gonna save all these as memory, or try to connect to their spirits or some shit. Like, I have no idea. I am curious as to how out there some of his beliefs certainly are.
You know what I kind of want? Because this would be very similar to a character I had in mind a while ago when I was working on a kind of sci-fi project. And it'd be like one for kind of a doctor who gives very mad scientist vibes in terms of like how like the kind of weird, bizarre experiments that this guy does. But deep in his heart, he's still like a good person because even though he has zero respect for the dead in terms of like what he'll do to a corpse in order to learn from it, he still does have a very huge respect for the living and would never, do anything to harm a patient. I wonder if that's like the kind of out there kind of character where we can expect from him. One who will like, take apart like the zombie corpse and like, completely like terrifying looking ways. And so you look at him and go, oh, this guy's just crazy. But then like you find out later, oh no, I'm doing this for a greater good. And I mean, they're already dead anyway. So it's not like I'm hurting anyone.
Yeah, you might be onto something there. I kind of dig that interpretation of who Fiennes could be playing. I really would like if his character was in that sense. I mean, because we are very much in the post-apocalyptic kind of world here. You don't really have anybody telling you what you can and can't do. And if he's a doctor, who knows how out there his experiments have certainly gotten, or how much he's kind of studied the human body and the anatomy, whether that be of the infected or non-infected, right? So I mean, just kind of toiling over infected bodies for 20 something years. I would be astounded if he wasn't crazy after everything that he's kind of seen. But yeah, I hope that he has some crazy ass ways and is depicted a certain way, but presents himself completely different in the second one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. Out of the 28 years later preview, what really stood out to you? Are you excited for both these films? As both films are one set to go ahead and drop 2025, the next one in 2026. After you hear some of the things that the producer and the director himself have certainly talked about, what are you looking forward to when it comes to this film, or what stands out to you most? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. And with that, Stuart, we will move on to our next topic as we're going to visit the world of Derry. That's right. Welcome to Derry. The upcoming It television series is back in the news.
But what if I'm lactose intolerant?
Okay, Stuart. Okay, we did talk about Welcome to Derry. I think it was last week or the week before with Bill Skarsgård talking about returning to the role of Pennywise. But this time around, we've got Andy Muschietti talking about really the plan for the series in its entirety, how many seasons they certainly want to get out of it, and really where they want to visit timeline wise. And I found this kind of interesting. Not to say, Stuart, that I thought that this was going to be like a limited series or anything like that, but they definitely have bigger plans than I certainly originally thought. So let's go ahead and dive into this. This comes to us from Bloody Disgusting, where they say there's a planned 3 seasons of Welcome to Derry and will take place in these 3 distinct eras. So let's go ahead and dive into this a little bit here. It says one of the hottest horror projects on the menu in 2025 is Welcome to Derry, a 9-episode series that will serve as a prequel to Stephen King's horror classic It. Andy Muschietti and Barbara Muschietti and Jason Fuchs are leading the upcoming Pennywise prequel project. And Muschietti revealed in a new chat with Radio TU this week that the current hope is for Welcome to Derry to span 3 seasons. He says, of course, that all depends on how successful the first season is when it debuts later this year, but it sounds like the team already has mapped out the skeleton of the 3-season tale. Welcome to Derry will kick off its story in 1962 and the time leading up to the events of It Chapter 1. From there, Muschietti teases in his chat the planned second and third seasons will jump back in time and take place in other distinct decades. Muschietti, of course, directed both It and It Chapter 2, explained. He says, it's a story that's based on the interludes of the book. The interludes are basically chapters that reflect Mike Handlin's research. They're fragments of his research. For 27 years, it's the guy trying to figure out what it is, what did it, who saw it, and all that stuff. So they talk about catastrophic events from the past, like the fire in the Black Spot, the massacre of the Bradley gang, a gang of bank robbers in the 30s, and the explosion of the Kitchener Ironworks, the filmmaker continues. Every time Pennywise comes out of hibernation, there's a catastrophic event that happens at the beginning of that cycle. Muschietti further teases there's a reason why the story is told backwards. So the first season is 1962, the second season is 1935, and the third season is 1908. He also says that Warner Brothers is happy with how the first season of Welcome to Derry turned out, and they're very interested in making a second season as soon as possible. So Muschietti is kind of given the green light that Warner Brothers is really happy with how the series itself goes, but teases the idea 1962 for season 1, 1935 for season 2, and 1908 for the third season. Yeah, man. Stuart, any thoughts on that?
Definitely interesting direction. So again, I haven't seen because season 1's out, right?
I don't think it's out yet.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
It's not out yet,
yeah. So like I haven't read the book, and I still don't know if I have interest in watching the show, but I do like that they seem to have a plan all the way through, like a through line for the show, which is really cool when it's like I feel like that is kind of becoming more common now, is planning a show out before writing it. So it is cool that they have like 3 seasons planned. So it does kind of intrigue me in that sense. And I do also like the idea that he even says like, yeah, there's a reason we're not telling it in order. We're telling it in a non-linear fashion. So if the first episode, it does intrigue me enough to keep watching, I'd be very intrigued, even more so, to find out why it is they decided to tell the story that way, what that, narrative purpose is that Andy Muschietti is hinting to. And, it'd be funny if he ends up like enjoying the show so much they have to find like a new director for Brave and the Bold.
Oh, I mean, yeah, as long as it's taking for that to come off the ground, who knows?
Yeah.
Did you like the It films?
I liked the first one. I wasn't big on the second one. I didn't think it was bad. It felt like the horror aspect of the whole franchise kind of went away because they tried to like upscale everything, make the special effects bigger, and in doing so,
Yeah.
it didn't feel like a horror movie at that point. It kind of felt like an action movie with no action. So it was just okay. Didn't love it.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the first one. The second one, I think I mentioned this a while back. I felt like it jumped the shark a little bit for me, maybe with the big bombastic special effects elements that kind of went into it. Yeah, the second one didn't work for me as much. I enjoyed it, but it didn't work for me as much. But when he says things like this, in the sense of they kind of want to tell the story backwards a little bit, this also kind of reminds me of. This is probably not a fair comparison, but I think the first thing that came to my mind for some reason was I think it's R.L. Stein's Fear Street, the Netflix trilogy that we just got. They kind of told their story in a kind of non-linear way in regards to like a trilogy of films instead of a trilogy of series, in the sense of you watch something in present day, they kind of give you clues of an event that happened in the past, and then the next film goes back to the past and kind of connects those dots to the previous film that you just watched, but then also tease something that happened in a prior time, and then you go back again, sort of thing, and then connects it to the overall kind of bigger picture of things. So for me, that non-linear storytelling can kind of really work if the story is really strong. And for me, at least when it comes to Fear Street, it definitely was. And so, I am a sucker for lore. I am a sucker for mythology and just the history of a particular world. And especially if you're talking about just sort of like catastrophic events, whether that be natural disasters, world events that kind of just shake the landscape of things. I think they talked about in the 1960s, maybe some of like the race riots and the civil rights movement and things like that. Pennywise kind of popping up and whatnot, or what really kicked that off. I would be really fascinated to kind of see like the other events that took place during the 30s or the early 1900s that wind up bringing Pennywise kind of forward, and seeing somebody putting the pieces and the clues together over time in regards to learning a little bit more about the backstory and the history of Pennywise and why he's kind of certainly there. So I really dig it. I'm a big sucker for like just period pieces, because I think that I love the idea of like the new sets that you have to design, the new costumes, when you're revisiting these old time periods and things like that. So if they can keep that sort of same level of great storytelling for something like that in the 60s and then take us back to the 30s and 1900s, yeah, man, that definitely kind of piques my interest. And if anything too, Sword, one of the things I was thinking about, and I'm glad you mentioned, is that like most of the time now, they do kind of have an outline as to how many seasons of a show that they want. But it is fascinating to me that I feel like we continue to get less and less seasons of things. Like it's just the times of streaming services. I mean, I think if live action series thinks that they have the opportunity to do 5 seasons of something, I think that's almost a stretch, unless you have some level of commitment from a streaming service. So the fact that they're only going to be doing three seasons in here, I think is telling. But I think also it's based off of just the actual literary work of Stephen King, right? Like how much content do you actually have to kind of work with? And if you can make 9 episode seasons, that's awesome, sort of thing. But we're just in a very different time than we were, say, 5 to 10 years ago when it comes to TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because like in some ways I do think like making a limited series from the start is actually a smart way to go depending on the show.
Yeah.
But I don't think it should have ever replaced what we had before. I think that the two of them, because I do think that, when it comes to procedural shows, those are the type of shows that, I still like to watch. I think still should exist, but I also don't think that a procedural show would work if it was like planned out all the way through. I think those type of shows work because they're not planned, because you kind of develop the characters as you're writing, and I think that I think there's a place for both. And I think that that's something that I hope we can get to at some point in the future, rather than completely relying too much on the limited series kind of runs. But yeah, I guess that's definitely like a wait and see, like 10, 20 years down the line.
Yeah, it feels like everything these days is a limited series. And then if it's received well, then it's like, hey, it's a season 2 coming, guys. We're gonna turn
Yeah.
this into a season 2 kind of mindset. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But it just continues to remind me just how different TV is now than what it certainly used to be. But no, I think I think there's also something to say about writers that have a story that they want to tell and have a beginning, middle, and end, and they can wrap things up also on their own terms. And if you can make really great television that way and give us 3 solid seasons of something, I'll be more than happy with it. So we'll see how this turns out. I am looking forward to this series. I definitely want to go back and revisit it. I know sometimes Stephen King adaptations are kind of hit and miss these days, but based off of what I personally enjoyed from the 2 films that we wind up getting, I definitely want to go back to Derry for sure. I think there's a lot of great content to mine there. So we'll see how it turns out. But look, guys, we want to know your thoughts. 3 seasons for Welcome to Derry. At least that's what Andy Muschietti is certainly hoping for, with 3 different time periods. If you have read the Stephen King novel, what have you thought about the book? Are you excited for this to certainly come to fruition? Let us know your thoughts in the live chat box below. Speaking of Andy Muschietti, did you hear his Flash comments recently, Stu?
Yeah, it's so funny because for a while I was like kind of turning around on him directing The Brave and the Bold. I was like, because when he was first announced to direct The Brave and the Bold, which was like after I had seen the Flash movie, I was like, this guy really. But the more I kind of thought of it, the more I'm like, maybe it could work. You know what? I'm a little more confident that Andy Muschietti can work if he's the kind of guy that knows how to learn from his mistakes and make something good going forward. I think this can work. And then I see his comments where it's like, oh, I think people just didn't like the Flash as a character because he's not as well known. I'm like, oh, no. Don't pull a Sony on us. Don't try to blame audiences for why your movie didn't sell well. If your movie didn't do well, there's only, not one person to blame. There's several factors, but you know what I mean? It's like, you don't get to pull that, and at the very least acknowledge, yeah, my film could have been better or something, or don't say anything at all. But,
Yeah.
hearing him say that makes me worried that like when he does The Brave and the Bold, it's just going to be so similar to the Flash that I'm just going to, if it's anything like the Flash, I know for a fact, I probably won't like it.
He said, for those of you who are unaware of Andy Muschietti's quote, he says they were asking him why he thinks the Flash. I don't know exactly what to be fair, I don't know exactly what the question was or how he got to this answer, but he says, a lot of people aren't interested in Flash as a character. The public half of that, the 4 quadrants, the 2 female quadrants, there are a lot of women who aren't interested in the Flash as a character. I think Grant Gustin could say otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's a whole CW show of people that would tell you otherwise.
Like, I know he'd probably be the kind of guy that would go, well, look at the ratings for the last season. And to which I would say, look at the ratings for the first season, you know?
Yeah.
Especially that pilot episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I even said this in my comments before, because I did do a repost of it. I said nothing about the Flash movie made me go, yeah, this guy should direct a Batman movie. And then I said, after hearing this, I don't want him anywhere near Brave and the Bold. I said, I can hear it now if this movie doesn't do well. Well, a lot of people aren't interested in Batman. Like, bro, like, stop. Like, stop. I look, all props to Andy Muschietti in regards to the stuff that he has done. I do think that he is a really reliable sort of filmmaker and stuff, and to be fair, out of the Flash movie, one, it is a film I definitely want to go back and rewatch, because it's been a while since last time I watched it was in movie theaters. I hadn't seen it outside of the movie theaters. But look, I'm not gonna lie, I do like the stuff that he did with Michael Keaton. I thought the Michael Keaton Batman stuff, along with the Supergirl stuff, was like the strongest aspects of a Flash movie, unfortunately. But just because I thought he did a couple of cool Batman looking scenes, doesn't mean that I feel like that style goes with a great Batman film. And it look, to be fair, I do think we are going to enter an age of fantastical, Batman being a little bit more fantastical. So maybe his art style that he brought to the Flash might work for something that James Gunn envisions for the Batman, but I just don't see it. And I just have a real problem of people not having any level of accountability for things. I mean, there's just so many other reasons that you could be honest about. Like, I want an honest opinion, because I don't think he even honestly believes that. And so the fact that he gives that BS answer, it's just like, yeah, I don't want you anywhere near a Batman movie if you just can't be honest. Like, it was just bad execution on a lot of fronts. And you had a guy in Ezra Miller that, just had bad press, and people literally boycotted this film because they didn't want anything to do with him, and vastly other reasons too. But to say that nobody has interest in the Flash is just utterly ridiculous, my guy.
Very much agreed. Yeah, it's like why I like the director of Thor too. When he finished it, he didn't like try to say, "Oh, Marvel screwed me over" and that kind of stuff. It was just simply, look, some directors know how to work with the Marvel mandates. I'm not one of them, and it's true. You look at James Gunn; he's a guy that will look at the Marvel mandates and he'll go, "Oh, I get to include this. Oh, I get to have this as well in my movie. All right." Whereas like some directors can't do that, and that's totally fine. That doesn't make them bad directors. Sometimes, for a director to really be able to tell the kind of story they want to tell, it has to be their vision. And so, when the director of Thor 2 is able to humble himself and say, hey, admittedly, I just couldn't work under that as well as I thought, that's my bad. It's like, yes, I respect that a lot more than just trying to say, like Andy Muschietti trying to say, people just don't like the Flash, or, in Sony's case, people being like, oh, people just don't like our movies because, they don't have Spider-Man in it or something, basically trying to say that audiences are incorrect about our movies.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so cringy to me. Marcelino says it would be pretty cool if they released the It series alongside the Carrie miniseries they're trying to make.
Ooh. See, a Carrie miniseries actually sounds kind of intriguing, not gonna lie.
It does. Blossom says that clown reminds me of this creepy video game from when I was like 5. Let's just say it takes the phrase "all hell broke loose" too literally. Ooh, interesting. I'm kind of curious what video game that was. Marcelino says Rick Famuyaya, I'm completely butchered his name, I'm sorry, wrote a script for the Flash movie that had the Flash and Cyborg be buddy cop film where they fight the rogues. Interesting.
Because I do remember Ray Fisher mentioning when he left, when he got I don't know if I should say he got fired or when he quit the Flash movie, because technically on paper it looks like he quit, but like he claims it was because he was fired or something. I don't know. Regardless, he was saying that he was supposed to have a big role in the Flash movie, and the producers were like claiming it was only a cameo, but that he read the script and saw, no, I was actually going to be a big role in it.
Yeah, I do remember that, and then they wind up cutting him out, I guess, because of all this shit he was saying about the him not getting enough roles or him being cut out or something like that. I can't remember what the
Yeah.
issues were.
Well, it's like funny because I was like on his side for a while because of like, him talking about the stuff with Joss Whedon, and when he said all that, other people started coming forward about it as well. But it was more just the fact that he kept going after like Joss Whedon had already been like fired. He then like started to aim the blame at Walter Hamada, saying that
Oh,
he
yeah.
was the one responsible for everything,
Yeah.
even though like obviously I wasn't there. So I'm not trying to call Ray Fisher a liar. I don't want anyone thinking I'm like saying he's a liar or anything. I'm just saying I find it hard to believe because usually as a producer, you're not on set most of the time. So I don't know how he would be responsible for the actions of Joss Whedon. But again, that's just like coming from my outside confusion, only because there's never been any like elaboration on how he was responsible, because Ray Fisher has kept it vague the entire time whenever talking about Walter.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Marcelina says, so I guess this is the time where you guys call out companies, call out the fans, and blame them. Says normally you call out the toxic people who make fake news about companies attacking fans, where this is the reverse with the Flash movie and Sony. Yeah, I mean we try and keep it down the middle. If we see BS, we try and call BS for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Try not to like say, oh, it's always this person or this always that person. Yeah.
But let's move on to our next story. Stuart, I think I moved things around here a little bit. As we're going to dive into Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the animated series from Disney Plus that's set to go ahead and drop January 29th. We will be doing reviews for the channel here for you guys. I don't know if I would assume they're probably going to be dropping. I wonder if they're going to drop like 2 episodes at once or weekly after that. I'm definitely going to have to do some research in regards to that. But this week, Collider.com had the opportunity to sit down with the showrunner and talk a little bit about the upcoming series and really their decision to go ahead and place this in sort of an alternate reality. I've been hearing a lot of pushback, at least from some people on social media, at least on my Facebook page, at the trailer itself, kind of wondering why it couldn't be in the MCU and why they're making so many sort of drastic changes in this animated series. And so I thought it'd be interesting to go ahead and highlight the showrunner themselves discussing why that is. And according to them, the title of this article, "We would be severely limited," is what the showrunner said, explains why the new Marvel series isn't set in the new MC or in the MCU. It's Peter Parker's world. We're just living in it. And in recent years, fans have been fortunate to see many lovable iterations of the web slinger, both in animation, thanks to Into the Spider-Verse and its sequel, along with the live-action MCU from No Way Home. Now Marvel is set to introduce a new iteration of the character with animated series, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. While fans were enchanted with the first trailer as the release date nears, more details about the project are coming out. And in a new interview with Animation Magazine, showrunner Jeff Trammell spoke about the timeline the series is set in. Ever since Loki Season 2 elaborated on the concept of the multiverse, and words like sacred timeline and 616 timeline have found a place in the fandom's vernacular, every upcoming title is under scrutiny as to which timeline they belong to. While we've seen Holland's Peter Parker in the MCU timeline, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man will be set in a different one when Norman Osborn is Peter's mentor. It goes on to say, "I'm a huge fan of the MCU Spider-Man films, but if our show existed in the main MCU timeline, we would be severely limited in the types of story we can tell and would have pretty short shelf life." further explaining that the animated series is based in a sister timeline, which helps the series to be its own thing. He says taking place in a sister timeline, one universe over, allows us quite a bit more freedom and helps us tell stories that don't necessarily have to go down a familiar route. One of the big things we wanted from the series was not only to show Spidey at his peak, but also his valleys. He has his fair share of victories, but experiences some big losses as well, which will hopefully make him more adept hero in the long run. I'm trying to see if there's any other. That looks like that's probably about it in regards to it. We just talked about Coleman Domingo, but yeah, it confirms him as Norman Osborn, and Hudson Thames from the What If season 1 episode where he voiced Peter Parker. He's going to be coming back to do the voice as well. There's an Aunt May in here. There's a Dr. Octopus in here. The upcoming series will also feature Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio reprising their roles as Daredevil and Kingpin. So yeah, that's pretty cool that they're both going to be in here as well. So we got a butt ton of people in this animated series. But I'm really looking forward to this, Stuart. I truly am. I completely understand the idea of wanting another timeline to kind of work in. I'm not going to lie. There was a part of me that when this was first introduced, I kind of was really digging the idea of this being sort of our MCU kind of Tom Holland before he gets the opportunity to meet somebody like Tony Stark, kind of knocking on his door sort of thing. And so to have that kind of turned around on us, I thought I read somewhere that either Civil War has happened already in this timeline, or instead of Tony Stark knocking on his door, it was Norman Osborn that knocked on his door and met with his Aunt May or something like that, to kind of set this timeline apart from everybody else. So for me, it kind of works narratively. I mean, I'm glad that the article brings up Loki season 2, because it continues to solidify like why, again, I haven't finished What If season 3 yet, but like why shows like What If exist during this particular time period of the MCU, and why shows like Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man exists, that kind of play off of this is the multiverse saga. We are taking chances to kind of tell stories that aren't necessarily linked to the MCU, but maybe divergent from big MCU moments that kind of happened in here. And so while initially I was on board with the idea of seeing an early Tom Holland in his experimental sort of Spider-Man suit, filming himself and putting himself up on YouTube and stuff before we even get a Tony Stark, there is something really appealing to the idea of now I feel like it goes from being able to limit yourself in the stories that you can tell, which to be fair, I don't necessarily know how limited it would be. I mean, look, the opportunity to create something new and fresh is always going to give you limitless possibilities. But I also do think a Spider-Man series probably could have worked within the MCU, especially based off of just the time gaps in which we don't see Peter Parker in any kind of Avenger films or in between some of his own particular movies. I do think adventures can certainly happen during those particular periods of time. So it would have been fun to kind of maybe dabble in that a little bit, but I think you probably handcuff yourself in the sense of, well, you can't do that with Peter Parker because he's going to do this in the next MCU film, or he's going to meet this character later on, so you can't have him meet this character at this particular point in time. So, I'm all for the idea of sort of a multiverse and additional timeline here for the Spider-Man character, as long as the story is certainly there and you give us some really fresh takes on some of these characters. I think it should be relatively exciting, but I do think that this particular stage of the MCU has firmly established that a lot of these projects can kind of have wings of their own, Stuart, and do their own thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that when it was first made clear that this wasn't going to be in the MCU timeline, I was a bit disappointed. But I think it kind of it gives them, like they say in the article itself, a lot more creative freedom. And I think like the main way in which it helps is like kind of looking back at Spider-Man. And I think this is what made me actually have a complete 180 on it, was the movie Spider-Man No Way Home, where you get kind of like a few confirmations of characters that don't exist in the MCU. We find out Dr. Otto Octavius, or if he does exist in the MCU, he's very much like not a known professor or anything, because clearly Peter Parker has never heard of him. Same with Norman Osborn, who if he existed in the MCU, I feel like they would have known if he existed, because he's a billionaire. He's not like Dr. Otto Octavius, where he could be just like a high school or a college professor. This is like actually a billionaire CEO. So we kind of know for a fact at this point that, Norman Osborn doesn't exist in the MCU either. So when you've already kind of limited yourself by saying that, Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn cannot be used in this universe before the events of No Way Home, you realize that, prequel Spider-Man show, maybe the best way to take the show would be to use like an MCU adjacent universe where, the way I look at this universe, I look at it as a what if Marvel had the rights to Spider-Man from the beginning, and try to look at this universe like that. Look at it like what the MCU would have looked like if they always had the rights to Spider-Man. And I think with everything that we've seen so far from both the trailer, and then of course all the concept arts, this really does kind of give me that feel of like a older Spider-Man cartoon. Kind of reminds me of like both the 90s Spider-Man cartoon that everyone loves, and then of course the spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, which I haven't seen, but I've been told to watch because I've been told it's like really good. So yeah, I do like that we can look at this on its own. And that, it's, just because it's not in the MCU, that doesn't mean the MCU isn't important to this series, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think you make a good point there. I'm really excited for this. Johnny says new animated Spider-Man Disney Plus series comes out on my birthday. Happy early birthday, Johnny. Appreciate it. Marcel says, which Spider-Man comic are you hoping they adapt the most for the new cartoon? I would be interested to see if they even tackle any comic book storylines, at least maybe for the first season, or maybe if it's an all original kind of story. I say this all the time, and it's until it happens, this is probably going to be my answer for everything. I need a Clone Saga, man. I need a Ben Reilly Clone Saga in some way, as crazy of a storyline as it is with all the crazy beats. With this really not connected to the MCU, I think maybe you can kind of establish something in regards to a Jackal character or creating a clone relatively early in this, and maybe have the payoff come in like season 3 or 4, depending on how long the show certainly runs for. I hope it's not a limited series sort of thing where we only get the one thing, and once the multiverse saga is over, then this series is over sort of thing. But I would like to see it continue, but I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I have one outside of the Clone Saga that I really want to see brought to some level of storytelling. I think they did it in the in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. I can't remember though. It's been forever.
For me personally, I don't really have a story in mind that I want them to adapt. I just want them to kind of make their own story and make it, good. However, what was I gonna say? Never mind. Sorry.
Marcelino does say Craven's story, The Last Hunt. That would be pretty cool. It was definitely something I would have loved to have seen in a Tom Holland version, but I don't think we're going to get that now based off of the Craven movie. But yeah, I do like Craven's Last Hunt would be interesting, especially if it ends up with a black symbiote in the future season. But I don't know if they would tackle an actual comic storyline in the first season, or if they have something a little bit more original planned for season 1. But we'll have to see. But guys, we want to know your thoughts. It felt like it would be severely limited in regards to what they'd be able to do with the character if they decided to keep this story within the MCU. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you like the idea that this is in its own alternate timeline here with the ability and a little bit more freedom to tell the stories that they want? I definitely would love to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. Yeah, and Oh, go ahead, sir.
Sorry, I just remembered what it was I was going to say earlier. So, because we were talking about how many seasons the show might get, I know that they at least had 2 seasons planned from the beginning, because this first season was originally going to be called Spider-Man Freshman Year, and then the second season was going to be called Sophomore Year.
Gotcha.
So I'm not sure if that's still the plan now that they've completely retitled the show.
I would love to see other characters like, excuse me. I definitely would like to see like Black Cat introduced in here.
Yes.
Some other characters. I don't think I've seen like a Mary Jane animated character yet. So if this wants to deal with like other loves of Peter Parker's life, like I think was it Liz Allen? I believe I saw her in the trailer. I wouldn't mind a little bit of expansion of like the Betty Brant character a little bit more, and maybe even Felicia Hardy as the Black Cat in here. I think would be some really cool um female characters opposite of Peter Parker and Spider-Man to kind of play around a little bit with. But yeah, we'll see if she pops up in here or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts on the upcoming Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man releasing January 29th. Blossom says, I wonder how this Spider-Man is going to turn out. I'm used to the Peter's 94 self, plus I hope their Black Cat is hot enough for me to cosplay, though, now that you mention it. Yeah, hopefully we get ourselves a Black Cat at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, with that out of the way, we will move on to our next topic. As Stuart, you and I about to get into our Star Wars bag, my man. Really looking forward to diving into some brand new Star Wars news, as we are getting ever so closely to the finale here of Skeleton Crew. The next series after that is going to be Andor. Which I believe drops in March or April, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look at that. We've got a couple movies in the timeline that we know for sure is going to happen. Mandalorian and Grogu has, in fact, wrapped filming. But there are 2 other projects in the works, or soon to be in the works, that I wanted to go ahead and talk with you about today, Stuart. One of them being Ahsoka Season 2, and the other one being James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi. But let's go ahead and start off with Ahsoka Season 2. As you know what, I think Ahsoka is ready for a Season 1 rewatch for me, Stuart. I really think so. I rewatched. Did I rewatch? No, I'm probably actually going to do Andor Season 1 again here as we lead up closer. But before Season 2 drops, I will be doing an Ahsoka Season 1. It had some bright spots, some really cool character moments, I thought, but it was certainly lacking a little bit in the storyline that I was hoping that they would just lacking a little bit storyline wise. We did get the live action introduction of Admiral Thrawn, which I thought was really big. But we also got some really compelling new characters introduced, specifically in regards to Baylan Skoll, played by the now deceased actor Ray Stevenson. Certainly rest in peace. He had one of the more memorable arcs and characters of Season 1 of Ahsoka before his passing. And it really had a lot of us asking ourselves, how are they going to move forward with a Season 2 with this character? Well, Stuart, we have our answer, man. Let's go ahead and dive into this. This article that we get today comes to us from Star Wars Newsnet, where they get there. I can't remember. I think they got this tidbit of news from Jeff Schneider himself. But it looks as though the Hound from Game of Thrones has in fact been cast for the recasting of Baylan Skoll. Rory McCain is in fact going to be taking over the role of Baylan Skoll here. It says, after Ray Stevenson passed away in May of 2023, a few months before Ahsoka Season 2 came out, the questions surrounding the future of his character beyond the finale have lingered since Part 8 premiered in October of that year, and now we finally have an answer. Game of Thrones star Rory McCain is stepping up to play Baylan Skoll in Ahsoka Season 2, reporter Jeff Schneider said in his newsletter today. It seems like writers and showrunner Dave Filoni is choosing to continue with the character's storyline, which is one of the most intriguing of the first season, and also one that was left unfinished in the finale. McCain was a friend of Stevenson, and according to the report, would have received the widow's blessing. He is best known for playing Sandor Clegane, aka the Hound, in Game of Thrones, who was and was also last seen in Gladiator 2. The second season will start shooting in the UK in the spring. Everyone from the main cast is expected to return, though the plot and pretty much any details are being kept closely under wraps. It's expected to go ahead and premiere in 2026 sometime. Dave Filoni is back writing the full season, in adding to serving as showrunner and executive producer. No word on whether he will direct an episode as well, though it's fairly likely. He may confirm this news at Star Wars Celebration later on this year as well. So as of right now, the insider source Jeff Schneider is letting us know that Rory McCain, with the blessing of the widow of Ray Stevenson, is set to go ahead and tackle the character of Baylan Skoll. Stuart, I would love to know your thoughts on this in general. I know you're a big Game of Thrones fan. I'm pretty sure you probably love you some Rory McCain. But what do you think about this casting choice?
First, let me just say rest in peace, because man, this was not only did we get a great performance from an awesome actor that you can definitely recast, but you can never replace. He's definitely someone who's really going to be missed in the industry. But moving on to the next character the next actor who's going to be playing him, I think that you couldn't have gotten a better recast, for sure. Because I've always loved the Hound in Game of Thrones. He's always been one of my favorite characters, and even when I thought his story was done, they still found a way to keep him going in that beginning of season 6, which really shocked me. I can't remember if I've seen him in other things besides Game of Thrones, but he's I think that not only can he carry himself in a very similar fashion, but I think that he could definitely. Yeah, I think that he's the closest you can get when it comes to matching the vibe that the previous actor gave. I think this is a smart decision. I really want to thank Dave Filoni for not just writing his character out of the show and just having to completely change whatever it is that you were building up to from scratch. I think that's like something that I've been seeing so much of in Hollywood, and even in TV productions, where rather than just trying to recast and continue the story that you already had in mind, you suddenly decide to completely rewrite the whole thing from scratch and just basically almost borderline reboot what you already had going on, but still trying to carry what you had before. So personally, and I know fans will disagree with me on this, that's totally fine. I think it worked pretty well with Black Panther 2, but I think that Black Panther 2 was like lightning in a bottle. I don't think you could make a movie like that again. And then a time that it didn't work is like you get a show like Batwoman, where you look at the first half of season 2 and it's like one of the messiest things you'll ever see in a TV show, because it's like they completely started from scratch, but then they also tried to keep everything that they had already built up to from the first season, and it just didn't work. So I think this is a much smarter route to go. And I don't think it's disrespectful, as long as you're paying tribute to the actor that came before, and especially if you got the permission from the widow from the spouse. I think I don't think there's anything personally disrespectful about recasting after an actor has passed away. So I think this was the smart route to go. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this casting choice. One, I am glad that they were close friends. I think this is kind of fitting that they knew each other and respected each other. I do find it important to have gotten the blessing from this family to go ahead and take on this role, and to know that you're filling in for the shoes of your friend that you miss dearly. I think that's something really poetic and really satisfying about that. So I'm glad that Rory McCain is getting this opportunity. And I mean, just from like a build standpoint, like I can totally see him getting a nice shave and haircut and letting his gray grow a little bit, and almost eerily looking like each other in a weird sort of way. So I would like to see what he's going to look like and his performance wise when he comes to bring Baylan to life. But it is one of those things too where just from a character perspective and the story that Dave Filoni set up, him and his Padawan or his apprentice in Shin had a really intriguing story that they were really set to go ahead and tackle. It was felt very much like just the beginning of it, like the way that Baylan found the planet that they were on, and the connection that he had to it, the mystery that he clearly knew more about what this planet held than the other characters did, and like his full-fledged commitment to staying on this planet and taking advantage of whatever certainly might be there for them to prosper off of. It just felt like there was so much more story left on the table for them to explore in the season 2 that it would feel really hard to just drop Baylan Skoll's story and just kind of start from scratch. Even if you wanted Shin to kind of be sort of like the new main character to kind of push that story forward, there felt like there was just so much left unanswered as to what Baylan knew about that planet that they were left behind on, that it's like you kind of have to do a recast. And I think the fact that Dave Filoni is sticking with this story here, one, it really does intrigue me, because I do wonder all the mysteries that are about to be uncovered in here with him and his apprentice, and what that means just for, I don't think he really considered himself a Sith or anything like that, but I would be interested to see what that means for just the Force in general, in regards to the importance of this planet. So there's a lot more story left for them to kind of explore. So I'm glad Dave Filoni decided to stick with the Baylan character and just find somebody to go ahead and recast. So I'm really interested in that. If anything, out of this article that does worry me is, I think I've said this before too, is I really wish that Dave Filoni brought in a writing team, or had one or two additional writers on board with him. I know that this Ahsoka is his child, and I know it's his baby, and I know he's very protective of it. But I am hoping that if he is going to write all the episodes for season 2, I hope he's learned a lot from the people that he's been working around since season 1. I hope he's made new creative decisions and choices, and understanding more character growth, and especially working on his dialogue skills a little bit more. So in some ways, I'm a little bit hesitant that he's set to go ahead and write this whole entire series by himself. I mean, even like John Watts and Christopher Ford, if you look at some of the writing credits for Skeleton Crew, like 2 of the episodes aren't even written by them. I think it's okay to have an outline and some story beats that you want to hit, and allow other writers to kind of come in and flesh out your story a little bit more. So I'm hoping that since season 1 of Ahsoka, that Dave Filoni has certainly grown in that capacity. I do expect him to also do some directing work. I really want him to do some more directing work for season 2, because if he is going to direct a film, I need this man to get in as much practice as he possibly can. So some beats I'm concerned about, but I'm going to give Dave Filoni the benefit of the doubt, because I know he can be an incredible storyteller, and I'm just really ready for him to finally hit his stride when it comes to live action. And I'm hoping that's going to be Ahsoka season 2. But as far as a recasting choice, I think he made a great one in here, Stuart.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I would say the main thing that gives me kind of hope with him is looking at the Clone Wars and how the movie, a lot of people forget this, but the movie was not very good. And even a lot of season 1 and 2 definitely had some rough patches. And
Did Dave Filoni write that movie though? Or was that George Lucas?
I could have sworn Dave Filoni wrote the
movie.
Maybe
it was. I don't know. I'm just asking.
I think it was George Lucas's idea to make it a movie, because I think originally it was meant to be the first 3 episodes, and then George Lucas was like, it's good enough to be a movie, so let's just make it a movie and release it in theaters. I don't know why. George Lucas is just a fun voice to do. But anyways, I think he wrote it, and as we kind of see in the Clone Wars, it took, you know, like most shows, it took 3 seasons to really grow its beard and just be the awesome show that we remembered as. So I think like the same could happen with a show like Ahsoka. It's what I think could have also happened with the Acolyte if Disney didn't cancel it. Like I do think that show had so much potential. It was just, you know, trying to, you know, figure out what worked, what didn't. And I think that's what's going on with Ahsoka season 1. So I do think that season 2, you know, assuming that he kind of like listens to like the things that worked and didn't work about season 1, I do think that there's a lot of potential in the second season. And I do think that Dave Filoni's definitely the kind of man that improves his writing rather than, you know, getting worse or doubling down.
Did we correct me if I'm wrong or remind me, because it's been a minute since I watched Ahsoka season 2, but did Ahsoka's Padawan and Sabine, did she ever tap into the Force?
Yeah, at the very end.
At the very end, right?
She gives Ezra the boost that he needed.
Ah, yes, that's right. That's right. Okay, good. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely aspects to it that I definitely am looking forward to when it comes to Ahsoka season 2. The bond and a relationship, now that things have certainly changed between Ahsoka and Sabine, after the intensity that's certainly and the awkwardness at times between the both of them. So I am looking to kind of see how they grow as a Padawan and a master. And I'm kind of hoping that we get some more flashback sequences too. I was a really big fan of Ariana Greenblatt that played the young Ahsoka Tano. And anytime that you can get Hayden Christensen to certainly return as Anakin Skywalker, I think is certainly going to be a win. You know, I think for me, my biggest pet peeve out of this show was I didn't really care for Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera. I personally, she is a great actress, and I think as the season progressed, maybe I got a little bit more on her side in that regards, but it still feels like a really weird casting choice to me, honestly. And with the Ezra Bridger character coming in as late as he did, I do wonder what his place in Ahsoka season 2 is going to be, because again, while this should certainly be an Ahsoka series, this feels like Rebels 2.0 to me. Like that's what it might end up turning out to be. So we do have a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving characters, and so I'm hoping that Dave Filoni can really kind of tighten this script up, really allow Ahsoka to still be the main focus of this show, and still be able to balance some of the ensemble cast and storylines that he has. So I do think Ahsoka season 2 needs some improvements, but I am eager to kind of see what season 2 holds for us.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you how it's like Rebels 2.5. It's very much like in the same way how I always say that Picard season 3 almost feels like Next Generation season 8, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see. But from Ahsoka to another upcoming Star Wars project, we've got James Mangold back in the news as he is talking about his upcoming Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi movie. For those of you who don't know, James Mangold just got done doing a brand new film called A Complete Unknown with Timothée Chalamet, the Bob Dylan biopic, if I'm not mistaken. So it's another film that I definitely want to go ahead and check out. I've been hearing really good things about it. And I think James Mangold is a more than capable director and writer, to say the least. From I think he did Ford v Ferrari, which I hear was great. He's most notably known, I think, from like Logan, which people love and still hold as like one of the best comic book movies of all time up there. Fresh off of A Complete Unknown. His hiccup for some would probably be Indiana Jones, the 5th one, certainly recently. But I think based off of where James Mangold came in on that process and just how all over the place, I think the process of putting that film certainly together I think James Mangold probably did his best of a job as he probably could have done on that film. And it was a film that I enjoyed, but I can see some people saying it didn't maybe feel necessarily like a Indiana Jones film. And for me, the final act is a little bit all over the place for me, unfortunately. So I think he certainly did his best, but I definitely believe in James Mangold as a filmmaker. So you tell me you want him to do a Star Wars movie, and I'm usually going to be through the roof for it, honestly. So I'm kind of looking forward to this. But James Mangold had the opportunity to sit down, I think, with MovieWeb this week talking about a complete unknown, and the topic of his movie for Star Wars came out. And James Mangold here, according to the article, reveals what will make his Star Wars movie work, Stuart. So maybe this is the key. He says, James Mangold has never shied away from challenges. From a Johnny Cash biopic, Walk the Line, he did that, to the intense Girl Interrupted with Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie, another great film. His career is full of varying choices like these. But his upcoming Star Wars movie might be one of the largest chunks of challenges he's ever bitten off, and that's saying something. Along with the accomplished showrunner Bo Willimon, who wrote, for those who don't know who Bo Willimon is, he wrote the prison escape episode of Andor. So James Mangold is not writing this alone. He has one of the writers from Andor working alongside him. Mangold is set to take on Star Wars in a truly unique fashion with Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi. It says a story that takes place a very, 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 very long time in a galaxy far, far away. In fact, that film will take place in that very, very distant past that appealed. Oh, he says it's that fact that the film takes place a very, very distant past that appealed to Mangold, who only took this project on because he and Willimon would be able to tackle a time and place that was open for discovery in the franchise. This is what he says, Stuart. He says, to me, the really important aspect are the freedom to make something new, said James Mangold in a recent interview. Bo and I, in relation to Star Wars, have been working on a script, and we'll see what happens. Do we find a way on the page to say something original? And the article goes on to say, original is never easy, but in the universe of Star Wars, there's so much to tend to. Rhyme like poetry, to quote George Lucas himself. Originality can certainly go against the grain a bit. Mangold feels he has a workaround, though, baked into the concept of Star Wars, The Dawn of the Jedi, that will bring him to the creative space he wants to enter. This is what he wind up saying here. He says, the Star Wars movie would be taking place 25,000 years before any known Star Wars movie takes place. It's an area and a playground that I've always wanted to explore and that I was inspired by as a teenager. I'm not that interested in being handcuffed by so much lore at this point that it's almost immovable, and you can't please anybody. He says, when discussing the biopic of Bob Dylan, he says, A Complete Unknown, which stars an excellent Timothy Chalamet, Mangold mentioned how he's identified with Dylan's own constant path of self-discovery. In my own mindset, in my own modest way, I do identify with it. He says, my entire career, I have really enjoyed changing what I'm doing. I don't think I changed myself, and I don't think Bob invents his core soul, but I like to throw myself into things that people don't expect, or that I don't expect, more importantly, in terms of surprising myself or challenging myself. A Star Wars feature will certainly qualifies. Mangold has scaled similar cinematic mountains through his career, from Logan to the Indiana Jones film. Sometimes Mangold's boldness pays off at the box office. Sometimes it doesn't. There's usually one way of improving the odds, though, something that Mangold will apply to his Star Wars films. He says, look, success is never guaranteed, but the reality is that the way to get most people to agree is to move them to somehow find the humanity in a situation, whether it's a mega franchise or a smaller dramatic movie, whatever they are. Usually the movie you remember are the ones that move you, the ones that leave you cold, even if they're clever, even if they're spectacular, even if they're dazzling. Somehow you just become replaced by the next dazzling object a year later. It's the feeling, it's the feelings, it's the feels right, right? He says that truly defines how we feel about these movies and whether we care to visit them again. So, yeah, I think his biggest point here is the idea of not only him really challenging himself, but that he's not interested in being handcuffed by so much lore at this point that it's almost immovable and you can't please anybody. I think that's a pretty bold statement, Stuart. What do you take away from that?
I don't know if I agree with that statement of you can't please anybody. I would agree that you can't please everybody. That's what I think he should have said. Because
Maybe that's what he meant to say.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. But yeah, so I think that overall this what he says about his excitement about it and the fact that this is actually like something that he's wanted to do for a long time. Like he's always thought about the aspect of the beginning of the Jedi since he was like, I think, didn't he say teenager in that article? I think something like that. That's cool. I love it when a director or a writer is like that passionate about a project like that. They've been thinking about it for like that many years. So that's pretty incredible to me. And yeah, like even though James Mangold, doesn't have the perfect resume in terms of like looking at Dial of Destiny not being the best movie that we've seen, it's very clear that a lot of what didn't work about it were definitely like Disney mandates. So it would be assuming that because this Star Wars project isn't going to be tied to anything like currently out related to Star Wars. It's like so far back, like that the creative freedom is there. I would assume there wouldn't be as many of those Disney mandates, and they would just be willing to let James Mangold make the movie that he wants to make. And if that's what we get from this, I do think we're going to look at a very unique take of the Star Wars universe. One that like doesn't try to appease fans, but rather just tell a passionate story. And that's something that I think, works. And I think that's what makes Star Wars, that's what gets Star Wars like at its best. Like you look at I think in a lot of people's favorite Star Wars show out there right now, it's Andor, one that is very, very different from everything that we've gotten in terms of the Star Wars universe. And yet it's one because it's like so focused on its character development and story and seeing just a whole new side of the Star Wars universe, one we've never seen before. I think that it's, it's one that, fans are really able to connect to because of that. And I think that you could definitely get that from, everything James Mangold is describing about his Star Wars project. I think that there's a lot of potential for all of that in his project as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I would agree in the sense that because something like Andor, while it does have an ending to it in a sense of we know how Rogue One turns out, outside of that, we only really know the time period in which it's set in. But other than that, it doesn't really have any kind of like connective tissues to any of the bigger lore to it, So it does allow somebody like a Tony Gilroy to kind of play in a little bit of a open sandbox, if you will. I mean, there are a couple of characters like that we're going to see that pop up here in season 2 that clearly, you do have to have some limitations because where they eventually go when it comes to Rogue One, but still being able to have a sandbox to play with, I think is really important in allowing yourself to be creative and create brand new characters that I think people can kind of attach themselves to a little bit. And, I think the idea of him not having that lore to be connected to just really works in this circumstance. I mean, I look at something like Skeleton Crew. I mean, outside of the, we got the New Republic stuff out of the way. Clearly while we're still playing in that time period around the Mandalorian and things like that, we're introducing ourselves to brand new characters. It's not like these characters are Skywalkers or Palpatines or like any connection to anybody else bigger. So the idea that you don't have these things that are keeping you in line from having to necessarily be constrained in the story that you want to tell, I think has really helped out a series like Skeleton Crew and allowing it to feel more original and giving us a new vision that we haven't necessarily seen in the Star Wars universe before. And so I do think that there is certainly some truth to what he is saying, because I think the moment that you start delving into having to utilize characters that people are so emotionally connected to and have been for such a long period of time, that's where I think a lot of the criticisms and maybe some of the unfair criticisms kind of come, because now you're dealing with people's expectations of what things are or what things should certainly be like, and now you're trying to tell a story that you want to tell that some people just think isn't the right story because it's not going in the direction that they certainly want to. So I am glad that he's getting the opportunity to separate himself from any other type of lore. I mean, you're talking 25,000 years into the past. I mean, this is really a fresh, brand new world that we've never experienced before. If I do have a concern, Stuart,
Mm-hmm.
The concern I have is if he wants to make this, and I think he's mentioned it before, that he kind of wants to make like a 10 Commandments kind of biblical epic of for the Star Wars world. You know, if we're talking about the first Force user, you know, I have a feeling that regardless if you go 25,000 years into the past, if you go 50,000 years into the past, hell, 100,000 years into the past, his vision of what the Force is, or what birthed the Force, or where the Force came from, or how is it established, or how people view the Force in this timeline. I can still see people, Stuart, saying, well, that's not what George Lucas said. Like I can literally still see people say to themselves, well, that's not how the Force works, or that's not how it came
Mm-hmm.
to be. Like I can still see people finding some area to complain about, because I think the cons. I mean, look, Stuart, we literally just saw the acolyte have witches literally talk about the Force, but talk about it in like a different way. Like it's literally the Force, but they gave the Force a different name in the sense of how they kind of understand it, and people got so butthurt about just that, let alone the idea of let's go 25,000 years into the past and see how other people view the Force during that time period. I mean, Stuart, people don't do math the same way they did 20 years ago, my guy. You know, like iterations and beliefs and how people view things change over time. And the fear that I have is that there will be people that do not understand that, or have a hard time coping with the idea of something along those lines. And so while I do think James Mangold is correct in the sense of it's not attaching itself to a bigger lore and other characters and storylines, you are still attached in the concept of the Force. And if people feel like your vision of where the Force came from is wrong, they are going to shit on you, my guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are going to have a problem with it. So look, my thing is, and I've said this before and people don't like it, make the film that you want to make. Don't care what the fans are going to say. You know, his idea, I think, is really important of if you can make a movie with characters or themes that are moving, that can live with you for a long period of time, those are the movies that are going to be successful. And I hope that that is his main and only focus and his only goal. Make the movie that you want to make. Do not care what other people are going to say, and leave it up to the moviegoer to experience this movie for themselves and take away what it is that they certainly might take away from it. But that would be, I think, my biggest concern. And I think that's why he says you can't please anybody, or you can't make anybody happy. I do think he meant you can't please everybody in that sense. I think that's what he was going for. And I do think you're right. And if he can keep that same mindset and just make the movie that he wants to make, maybe we're certainly in good hands. But I still worry about this film, Stuart. And not from the perspective of he's gonna mess this film up. And that's not necessarily my worry. My worry is the pushback that some fans might have based off of what his vision might be.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% spot on in that area, because The Acolyte is kind of a perfect example of a show that tries to give fans like a lot that they've been wanting to see, like, you know, in a Star Wars project, and yet fans still being upset when they get it. And that's not me trying to say that it's because fans never know what they want, or because The Acolyte, did everything right and they still got hated. Obviously, I still think that The Acolyte had a lot of issues, and I think that there are some things that I'm like, okay, those are some valid criticisms that fans will give to the show. But I think that, like, when it comes to fans constantly being complaining about the way the Force is used or the way the Force is talked about in different projects, I just like gotta wonder if they've ever watched Clone Wars, or if they've ever watched anything like expanded Star Wars, related, because the Jedi talk about the Force in a very specific way, but that's not how everyone looks at the Force. And and we see that in the Clone Wars, we see that in the Acolyte, we see that in a bunch of other Star Wars expanded universe And so, like, the Force, it's just, the thing is, there's never going to be solid rules of what the Force is and isn't. The Force is always going to be vague to an extent. So, in this movie, you're probably going to have the first Jedi. He's probably going to, discover things about the Force that, like, either we already know or things that we never knew about it. And fans are going to probably call moments like that plot holes, which I will, probably disagree with, depending on how it's presented, obviously. But it's like funny because the Force tries to get both in the original trilogy, the Force tries to get explained as kind of like something mystical, and then in the prequels they try to make it something scientific. So I'm very curious to see what the very first Jedi is going to say about the Force, if he looks at it in a more science level or in a mythical level. And I know for a fact that no matter what answer they give in this movie, it's still going to upset fans.
Yeah, and I think like I am fascinated by it. Like and it's not necessarily, and it's not even necessarily say that the person that discovers the Force for the first time will even understand it fully. It may not necessarily even give him a definitive answer as to where it comes from, but his views on what it might initially be, I think would be really fascinating to me. And the concept of like people seeing somebody use that ability for the very first time. I don't know if there's sense of what other senses of religions are in Star Wars universe, but I'm sure it's got to be like some devil worship shit, when people see it for the kind of first time. And so the concept of like a 10 Commandments biblical epic is really fascinating to me. And when you put that up against people that have never seen anything like that, and it kind of tests the beliefs of other people of this Force user, like this Christ-like character coming out, and whether he's able to use the Force to heal people or whatever the case may be, right? Like I am fascinated to see what that pushback and that resentment is kind of towards this very first person. So I'm not expecting it to give us a definitive answer on what the Force is, but I do think, especially something so early on, if it is the first Force user, just his explanation and what he kind of takes away from his sort of mentality, I'm hoping that it's something that people can understand, that this might have been what the first interpretation of the Force is, but just because that was 25,000 years ago doesn't mean that that's what the present day interpretation of it is. It could still mean the same thing, but people just look at it in two completely different perspectives, or millions of people looking at it in different perspectives over time. I just hope that the viewer has that sort of media literacy to be able to pick up on it and not get so offended in regards to, well, that's not how George Lucas explained the Force is. Why don't they know how that, like I hope it's not like that.
Yeah, you and me both.
So we'll see, man. We'll see. I have high hopes for James Mangold. I think he's got a great writer on board with him here. I've seen a lot of his other work. It could be hit or miss, like the article said. Sometimes financial success, sometimes it's not. But I don't necessarily think financial success also equals it's a good film or a bad film. And so I will be interested to see how Dawn of the Jedi certainly goes. And now that Complete Unknown has officially wrapped, I am wondering what else might be on James Mangold's plate, if he's got anything else up his sleeve, or if his focus is now going to be turning to a Dawn of the Jedi, because I would love that to be the next film that comes out after Mando and Grogu, but we'll see.
I really hope it's fully on Dawn of the Jedi, because I think like the sooner this film comes out, the better.
Yeah, I totally agree. Marceline says, I'll give James Mangold a chance, but I never liked the idea of learning the beginnings of the Jedi. I always liked it being vague and always remaining a mystery. I can understand
Okay.
that. Yeah. Do you think we're at a point where KK needs to go, because even some of her most hardcore defenders have come to the conclusion that she's no longer fit to run Lucasfilm? For me, I was one of those people. I was one of those hardcore defenders, in the sense of, I know what Kathleen Kennedy's past represents. I know how great of a producer she's been in Hollywood for years. She's really helped produce a lot of fantastic sort of um, classics, to be honest with you, that a lot of us remember from the 80s and the 90s growing up. But for me, I'm ready for somebody new. I'm ready for. She's got a lot of hits and misses, and it's kind of all over the place in regards to being unreliable, of having a vision for something and finding somebody that understands that vision and bringing it to fruition, and their levels of um, trepidatiousness that I think that she has, a fear to do something because of repercussions of fan bases, and I think I think they're just too reactionary over there, and I think they're walking on eggshells, and I feel like they're green lighting things with a lot of fear behind it, and I don't want somebody like that. I want somebody that's going to be a little bit more confident in the direction that they take Lucasfilm, and be confident in their creators and allow their creators to create and tell stories and allow people to be the judge of how good the quality of their stuff is, with bold new ideas and decisions, and not afraid to just pull the plug on something immediately. I've never known Kathleen Kennedy to be a great creator. And so if it is her kind of pulling the plug on a lot of things because it's not in her vision, or it's not necessarily what she was envisioning, I hope that they get somebody in there that is as much of a creator as they are a producer to putting these movies together. So I'm at the point now where I'm ready for somebody else to take the helm.
Yeah, I let me put it this way. I wouldn't be like upset or anything if I found out that they ended up firing her or replacing her, but I don't know enough about like the specific input that she has in all the Star Wars movies. I mean, we can look at all the ones that she has produced under her name. And like you said, it's kind of mixed. Some really good, some really bad, both movies and television wise. Right now, my biggest problem is the lack of movies getting greenlit. And I don't know. And the thing is, I don't know 100% if that's all on Kathleen Kennedy or if that's just, her bosses. Because like, even though she is technically in charge of Star Wars, she still has to answer to the CEOs of Disney. So until I know how much involvement she has when it comes to the creative process of Star Wars, I don't want to jump on that train of saying replace her quite yet. Not until I know for sure exactly like what involvement she has. Whereas like someone like Avi Arad, it's public knowledge, the stuff that he inputs on Spider-Man, and why, for someone like him, I'm all for replacing him, and then same with Amy Pascal. I think that's the other one who's in charge of Sony. Like, I know about their creative inputs when it comes to the Spider-Man franchise. So I easily say, yeah, I'm not a fan of either of the decisions these two make. So if they've got replaced, I would actually kind of celebrate. But with her, why am I blanking on so many names today? I don't know yet. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be upset if she got replaced. But as of now, I'm not one of the people that needs her to get replaced at the moment. I'm not quite at the point of blaming her for everything wrong with Star Wars quite yet. Oh, you are muted.
No, I get you. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. James Mangold discussing keys to Star Wars: Dawn of the Jedi. Why he feels, not that it's necessarily going to be a success, but why it's a little bit easier for him to tackle this particular project. We'd love to know your guys' thoughts in regards to his comments in the comment section box below. But with that out of the way, Stuart, that will wrap up all of our main topics today. And I think you know what time it is.
I do indeed. And now, everybody, it is time for live viewer questions.
And if you ever want to go ahead and submit over a live viewer question, I'll certainly show you how. Let me put on some soft tunes. Here, and I'll be right back. Give me a minute.
Actually, I will be right back. I gotta go grab something from the front door that just got delivered.
All right, give it a second to readjust here on my volume. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear me a little bit clearer now. But let's go ahead and dive into some live viewer questions. Stuart will go ahead and join us here momentarily. But if you guys do have a live viewer question, how do you submit them over? Well, every Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, we will go ahead and drop a live viewer question post. Just go over to our YouTube channel, as you see right here. Click on that community tab, and voila, you'll see a live viewer question post. Feel free to submit your questions down below. Oh, I got 11 comments today. Oh man, you guys are keeping us busy. Let me go ahead and sort this out. and then we'll get to all of your questions. All right, Marcelino, you're up on deck. Stuart will be back here shortly. Let's see here. I'll start with your number 2 first. I'll wait for Stuart to come back to answer your number 1. I'm surprised you and any other Power Ranger fan hasn't brought this up, but last year's Austin St. John found himself in the middle of controversy. Oh gosh, yeah. ASJ was promoting a line of t-shirts that would have famous quotes from historical people, and he said that he would also include some quotes made by Hitler, thinking that regardless of him being a monster, he did make some badass one-liners. God, I remember that interview. This does not sit well with Power Ranger fandom, and many started calling him out on his ignorance. It got so bad that even Amy Jo Johnson called him out on Twitter. A Jewish fan was able to interview ASJ about the situation, and when he asked him if he was going to put Hitler on a shirt, he responded with, everything will be revealed the day the merch drops. All my information comes from YouTuber Deoxy360, and I recommend you check out the video because there's a lot more I didn't go over. But what are your thoughts on this, and why didn't you guys cover it the same manner you covered Hector David Jr.'s controversy? Well, with the David Jr., that Hector David Jr. stuff, he actually served time for it. Like I thought that was really important to focus on, especially because of the fact that this man kind of went to prison for it. But ASJ, I commented on the ASJ stuff over on Twitter. I have to try and see if I can find my tweet on it. It's been so long, but I did comment on it. I just didn't do a video on it. I'm trying to remember if we talked about it on an APlus Hero report with Stuart, whether it was like an honorable mention or a live viewer question. I feel like somebody might have asked me that question in a live viewer question post, but I can't remember. It's been a while. But yeah, no, I think with ASJ, it was just so, like there are some people that I feel like are just so far gone, and ASJ is just one of those people, unfortunately. The Hector David Jr. stuff, I think, really shocked and surprised me because of his actual action behind it. Austin St. John almost felt like another day at the office, which is really terrible to say, unfortunately. But it was absolutely ridiculous. I honestly can't believe that he even said that. And I would assume when he says everything will be revealed the day the merch drops, I would assume that he didn't drop it. I think I even saw another interview of him where he said that, well, it's not exactly what he said, but it's like, no, bro, that's exactly what you said you were going to do. And I just found it absolutely ludicrous. It was just really disgusting. But Stuart, do you remember that?
Sorry, I missed the whole thing. Remembered what?
No, he was asking us. He was like, Marcelino said he was surprised that we didn't bring up the ASJ Power Ranger controversy where he had his line of shirts and famous quotes from historical people, and that he was gonna put a quote of Hitler saying that he might have been a monster, but he had some badass one-liners or some bullshit like that. I know we didn't. I know it wasn't an article that we brought up, but did we ever talk about that on Hero Report?
I'm pretty sure we must have at some point there, because that was coming up in conversations between me and people who aren't Power Ranger fans. So I gotta imagine we talked about it at some point.
I thought maybe it's something we talked about in like a live viewer question segment of the show that somebody asked us about. I cannot remember. Something wants to tell me yes. I do remember I mentioned something on my Twitter page. I can't remember exactly what the quote of it was, but I almost said, he says, well, why didn't you guys talk about it in the same manner that you covered Hector David Jr.'s controversy? I said, ASJ almost felt like it was like another day at the office for this guy. Like I get kind of like just so tired and like just exhausted about, did you hear what ASJ said this week or what he did this time? At least at the time, it felt like this guy was constantly in the news for saying some stupid ass shit. But I think the Hector David Jr. stuff just hit different because it's like, not that he didn't come out of nowhere, but it's like the guy assaulted somebody. He actually went to jail, and he actually had there was actual impact that was going to happen in Hector David Jr.'s life, whereas ASJ almost felt like there was like no accountability except for the pushback that he wound up getting from us fans at the time. But I would assume he never came out with the Hitler stuff, because I'm assuming he never did.
Yeah, I would assume after the backlash, he's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't sell this. I would hope, at least.
Yeah. Marcelo says there was no Hitler quote, fortunately, but the t-shirts themselves are boring and very generic. Yeah, it sounds like a ASJ project. So, yeah. There are actually 2 off-brand Snow White films that are coming out around the same time as a remakes coming out. There's Death of Snow White, which is a reimagining of Snow White as a gothic horror, where she teams up with 7 dwarves who, in this version, are cold-blooded assassins. The director said that they do not plan to compete with Disney, and that is just for fun. They have less than 1% of the budget spent more on marketing and wish everyone at Disney the best. And there's Snow White and the Evil Queen. The reason this film is being made is in retaliation towards the remake. They said that their plan is to make a proper adaptation of Snow White and to show their writing is superior by telling a story about love and vanity. They have cast an actress for Snow White, Brett Cooper, although they might recast her given the current circumstances surrounding her. What are your thoughts surrounding all of this?
Well, you missed one that I believe has Liana Ramirez starring in it, or someone from Power Rangers. I can't remember who, but it's called Snow White and the Seven Samurai, which is, I believe, Asylum production. That one is meant to come out to compete against Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, because that's what Asylum does. They always have their cheap knockoff movies. They always come out around the same time in order for people. Well, originally it was, hence why it was called Mockbuster. Originally it was for people who were browsing at Blockbuster to look at the cover and think that it was related to that movie, and then they'd be tricked into buying or to renting a copy. Nowadays, with them going straight to streaming services like Tubi, I actually have no idea how they make their money anymore, but they must still make money because they're still making these movies.
Wow. Yeah, I'm trying to look it up right now. Yeah, Snow White and the Seven Samurai. I'll have to look that up for sure. It says 2024, so did it already come out?
Oh, maybe it did. Oh, maybe I was wrong.
I looked up IMDb, but I don't really see it. Oh, Left 4 Dead. After her rich and powerful stepmother, Snow White is taken in by a team of assassins, the 7 samurai, who train her in their ways of fighting. Okay. Is she Snow White in this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
She might be one of the samurai.
Okay, she plays a character named Skylar, so yeah, I don't think she's the main character in here though.
Okay, but it was Liana Ramirez. Okay,
it was her.
Yeah, I knew it was someone from Power Rangers.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't, if they want to have competition or not competition, that's cool. I mean, people are making Poohniverse movies. So, the Winnie the Pooh horror universe. So, they can make whatever movies they certainly want to. That's fine. But yeah. If they want to make a proper adaptation to Snow White, I feel like they're on the same level of footing right now with Disney. They already cast an actor who has some circumstances that they might need to recast. Clearly there's some drama going behind the scenes with their Snow White also. So it's Marcelino, who was the better villain? Rain from Supergirl season 3 or Bloodwork from Flash season 6A?
This is going to make me sound kind of mean, but I'm going to go with Bloodwork.
Damn you, Stuart.
Because, not that make me sound mean. The reason, which is that I just didn't think the actress playing Rain was a good actress.
Oh, really?
And it kind of made it hard for me to find her intimidating when she became a villain. So I'm going to go with Bloodwork.
Okay. To be fair, I don't really even know the Bloodwork storyline, honestly. So I'm biased in that sense of I probably will go with Rain.
Yeah. One of the few glimpses of gold when Eric Wallace took over the show. Again, he's such a fascinating showrunner because there were times where I'm like, yeah, this is the perfect guy for the Flash, and then he does something like season 7, and I'm like, what the hell am I watching?
Yeah, I mean, I personally found the actress intimidating. I trying to remember what else I used to see her in. I used to really like her as an actress. I've only seen her in like TV series though. But there was something fascinating about, to me, the idea that she didn't know that she was who she was. You know, the idea she would have these blackouts and these seizures and stuff. Um and then the fact too that she also had a daughter that was kind of, in the middle of all this sort of thing of losing her mother sort of mentality. I don't know. I really like the Rain character. Marcelino says, well, that's surprising, Stuart, because people said that Rain was the first supervillain that was actually good. To each their own. But I mean, I found her as someone on, I don't want to say necessarily equal footing, but somebody that felt like a threat to me. So yeah, I'll probably go with Rain, but maybe one day I'll check out Bloodwork. We'll see what he's about.
That's funny because I actually thought, like, God, it's been so long though since I've seen Supergirl season 1. I barely remember anything, but I do remember thinking that oh shit, what's his name? The villain for he's the same character in Wonder Woman, the villain, Maxwell Lord. Yeah. I thought Maxwell Lord was an all right villain in Supergirl, mostly just because of like, it's funny, every now and then the pathetic villain is kind of fun to watch, and I think that Maxwell Lord was kind of like that perfectly written pathetic villain in a way, where it was like he's kind of all talk, but then the moment like things go against him, like suddenly you kind of see like the more pathetic side of him, and I kind of enjoyed that. It was entertaining to me, so I thought he was a pretty entertaining villain in Supergirl. And it's too bad they never were allowed to wrap up that storyline with him, because the actor wasn't able to commute when the show moved to Vancouver. Okay. Yeah.
He also said, this is Power of the Morphin Grid. My experience of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. He says Kamen Rider Dragon Knight stands out as a unique entry in the realm of superhero adaptations, as the first and only direct adaptation of the Japanese Kamen Rider series, specifically Kamen Rider Ryuki. It successfully carved its own identity, distinct from its contemporaries, while Power Rangers, despite sharing some of the same stunt teams. The series effectively navigated the complexities of having multiple writers. The Dragon Knight's narrative centered around a mirror dimension called Vintara, and a manipulative villain. How do you pronounce that? Zaviex?
Oh man, I don't remember.
Who pitted writers against each other, providing a compelling and darker tone. The series explored the motivations of its characters, many of whom came from troubled backgrounds or sought power and wealth. Kit Taylor, the protagonist, embodied this struggle, grappling with his past as a troubled teen and the burden of inheriting the Dragon Knight mantle from his mirror doppelganger, Adam. The concept of Advent decks, the unique transformation devices, added a layer of unique intrigue, allowing them to be reassigned based on merit or a connection to the original Ventaran writers. Watched this series during middle school and now as an adult. Beyond its compelling narrative and unique elements, Dragon Rider Knight left a lasting impact, like having his own fan base. The show earned an Emmy for Best Fight Choreography, and Stephen Lunsford, the actor who portrayed Kit Taylor, was recognized for his contributions to the franchise, becoming an honorary member of the Power Rangers family at Power Morphicon a couple years ago. This acknowledgement highlights the series' enduring legacy and its impact on the broader superhero landscape. While limited Japanese footage ultimately restricted the series to a single season, Dragon Knight remains a significant milestone in the series of superhero adaptations, showcasing the potential for creative and faithful adaptations of international franchises. Would you like a new Kamen Rider to ever be adapted in America? Maybe bring the same people who did Dragon Knight? What do you think of Stephen Lunsford becoming an honorary member at PMC? He himself said the series being rediscovered by newer fans brought back his appreciation for the show and being a big part of his acting career.
Yeah, I would absolutely love if they did another adaptation of Kamen Rider, or even if they just brought back Kamen Rider Dragon Knight for another season, relying on completely original footage. That would be cool. I did watch it a couple of years ago when I was starting to get into Kamen Rider as a whole, and I thought it was just a really fun, entertaining series. It definitely kind of corny at times because it was trying to be a little more edgy than Power Rangers, and in doing so I think it actually kind of made it look sillier than Power Rangers at times, but you know, that's also because it was a very new kind of concept of a show, so they were still trying to, you know, figure out what kind of show it wanted to be. But yeah, overall, like a really fun series to my opinion. And yeah, if they wanted to go back to Kamen Rider, like an American adaptation of Kamen Rider in any way, shape, or form, I would love it. Honestly, I would have loved to have seen a James Gunn directed Kamen Rider movie, because he's also a Kamen Rider fan. But now that he's in charge of DC, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, you know, Dragon Knight certainly missed me, but it is pretty cool that it had the impact that it certainly did, enough to him becoming an honorary member. I had no idea that it earned an Emmy or some level of award. I mean, I think that's certainly saying something, but I think that's cool that people appreciated him and gave him an honorary membership. You know, I still would love to see Kamen Rider. Was it Kamen Rider Zero? Adapted into American series at some particular point in time. You know, as far as after that, I mean, who certainly knows? But yeah, I'm always open for a Kamen Rider adaptation. Blossom, do you guys remember the Phoenix Force? How do you guys think the MCU should introduce it? The Dark Phoenix movie screwed that character up, so how would you guys fix it? Remember I said that Toei should have villains modeled after Burns and Smithers? If you could choose a character from Sentai or Power Ranger villain, who would it be? Probably Vic and Monty for me.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I'm going with that answer too. Okay, but for that first question, because you know what, this answer is going to sound like it's going to sound super generic because they already did this with the first X-Men trilogy and it didn't work. But I think that as long as you have better writers and directors, or at the very least a consistent director throughout a trilogy of X-Men movies, I think it can actually work better. But I think try one more time to make the Phoenix Force the tail end of a trilogy of X-Men movies, but this time make sure there is a lot of focus on Jean Grey and Scott, whereas like I kind of feel like we had X-Men Apocalypse to kind of focus on Jean Grey and Scott, but even then it was still kind of Mystique's movie starring the other X-Men, or guest starring the other X-Men. I feel like she, Magneto and Professor Xavier were still like the three front and center characters, and the rest were just kind of like there. None of them really had much of an arc. So I think that for the Phoenix movie to be their first movie with an arc, I think that was a really weird decision, and I think that's what made the last X-Men movie just not good at all. So I think that what they had going with the X-Men trilogy, the original trilogy, could have worked had they kept Bryan Singer on board, and had they had they kind of planned for it, I guess you could say, and had they made it more comic book accurate, which of course is the more obvious route. So yeah, I think that's like the two things: is one, make it more comic book accurate than the last two adaptations we got, and then two, build up to it. Do not make sure that like by the time we get there that Jean and Scott are characters that people love, that they care about, so that when you do see the Phoenix Force take over Jean, it's heartbreaking. When you see Scott like devastated, you're devastated with him. Basically, that's what they need to do going forward.
Yeah, I'm over it, bro.
You just don't want to see it at this point.
I just don't want to see it
That
anymore.
is totally fair, and I totally get that. They screwed it up twice. Why do you want to risk them screwing it up a third time?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I totally agree with you, Stuart. I think if you were gonna do it, you got to set breadcrumbs in like the first film. You know, like it's got to be like a trilogy that escalates each movie. I do think there's a lot of importance in what you said, and there's got to be great chemistry and focus on Scott and Jean as main characters all throughout this entire trilogy, because the Dark Phoenix film is just the saga is just so vast in scope, and there's so many moving pieces to it, that you really have to plan it out. I don't think you can plan it out in 2 movies. I think this has got to be like a trilogy mindset. I mean, you can have other storylines going on in the first 2 movies, but you have got to progress the Dark Phoenix aspect. You got to be ready to hit the culmination of that in the trilogy. Not like try and tell one whole story in one movie, or have the second one end with just now getting to the story sort of thing. Like, you have to really kind of start setting those pieces really early, and I just think that's really difficult. So I like what you said, Stuart. I just rather them not even try anymore, though, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I would avoid it.
Understandable.
Yeah. Peg C, if you had to choose between Jason and Brad Hawkins, who would have made a better White Ranger? Ooh. Look, I mean, I think JDF probably would have made the better White Ranger, but if I could rewrite history, I kind of want to see Brad Hawkins as the White Ranger. I kind of do. I would be curious if there would be another place in which you could bring back JDF. Maybe he could have been the Gold Ranger. I would have liked to have seen Brad Hawkins, but as far as who would have made the better White Ranger, I still think JDF made the best White Ranger. But that's just because I hadn't seen Brad Hawkins in a Ranger outfit.
I think that JDF was perfect as the White Ranger, but I think I'm gonna go the opposite of your answer and say Brad Hawkins would have been kind of a cool twist to do with the Gold Ranger. Because from and I could be wrong. This is all secondhand source information that I heard from Linkara, but because it's because he was in VR Troopers, and then they had him as like the original Gold Ranger before he passed it down to JDF. Originally, he was supposed to be the same character, apparently from VR Troopers, but do not quote me on that because I could be wrong about that. And so apparently that was the plan, is for him to become the Gold Ranger, and I think that would have been kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I would have loved that. That would have been pretty cool, though. That would have been cool. I like that. I didn't know that story about Brad Hawkins as possibly as the Gold Ranger. So now that you mentioned that, I would kind of want to see that now. Do you think Sarah Joy Brown, the actress who played Caitlin Starr from VR Troopers, could have taken Amy Jo's place in Power Rangers as the Pink Ranger instead of Catherine Sutherland? Oh, I would have liked that. I really would have liked that. I had a huge crush on Caitlin Starr from VR Troopers growing up as a kid. She went on to, I remember seeing her in like the soaps, soap operas on like I can't remember if it was General Hospital. It might have been General Hospital. But I know she went on to do other things, I think in the realm of soap operas. And I thought she was great there too. So yeah, I used to have a big crush on Caitlin Starr. Nothing wrong with Catherine Sutherland, but damn, I would have loved to have seen that too.
Seeing her, yeah, like I'm looking at photos of her in VR Trooper because I never watched a VR Trooper, but yeah, I think she definitely could have taken up that mantle. But yeah, I'm happy with what we got with Caitlin Sutherland.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about Caitlin Sutherland at all, but I definitely would love to have seen that. What do you think of the synopsis of the #1 Super Sentai celebrating 50 years of Super Sentai? The Go's user team fights #1 monsters in #1 showdowns. What the fuck does that even mean? Opponents using the powers of past. Oh, opponents using the past powers of Red Rangers will appear to challenge the Go's users as well. But above all, this team will fight each other as they work to collect the powerful Sentai rings scattered throughout their world to determine who is the #1 Super Sentai. What?
Is this the synopsis for the new one?
That's what he said.
Wow. This sounds hella fun. I need to get into it then. I have not watched I think, yeah, Kira Major was the last Super Sentai I kept up with, so I am super far behind in Super Sentai, but this makes me want to get back into it.
Yeah, it says the 5 heroes Each has special abilities such as scent tracking, superhero, super strength, super speed, telepathy. What? The number one monsters. The Go users battle these monsters in number one showdowns. Those are in quotes. The Sentai rings. The Go's users fight each other to collect Sentai rings scattered throughout the world. Previous Red Rangers, opponents with powers of the past Red Rangers challenge the Go's user. And then the Go's users also rescue people caught up in the conflict. What? Is there a link? Toku Nation. What's the... Dude, that sounds effing incredible. The head writer for the Super Sentai series is Akiko Inouye, previously of Kamen Rider Gotchard. Action director is longtime Super Sentai veteran Ryuta Tazaki. Okay, that's cool. I love that idea. That's crazy to me. So are they a team? Yet I guess maybe after they battle, do they have to fight each other to collect particular rings that maybe fall from the enemy? What is that? How does that work? That sounds awesome.
Sounds like they're a team, but they also have to compete with each other.
That's what it sounds like.
The Power Rangers, but they're Highlanders. There can only be one. Or sorry, the Sentai, but Highlander. There can only be one Sentai.
Dude, that sounds dope. Yeah, it says we'll fight each other in bold letters as they work to collect the powerful Sentai rings scattered throughout the world. I do wonder if, like, is it a physical battle too? Do they just not get along also? Gyozu Wolf is kind-hearted, but with a violent tendency. His ability is scent tracking thanks to the enhanced sense of smell. Gozyu Leon is the charismatic people pleaser gifted with super hearing. Gazyu Tyranno, I'm assuming is yellow, is naive but well-meaning, possesses super strength. Gozyu Eagle, I believe that's blue, is fun-loving playboy with super speed. And Gozyu Unicorn, which is the pink-black, projects a calm personality but is devoted to her family. She possesses telepathy. I'm sold, man.
Yeah.
I'm sold. Oops, my bad. Yeah, I'm sold on that, dude. That sounds incredible. All right. Thank you for those questions, Pexy. The most talented man in the world. Regarding Malcolm in the Middle returning, a four-episode miniseries for Malcolm in the Middle could be a fantastic way to revisit the beloved characters. Here's why: minimizes risk. Cancellation. A short run reduces the pressure of sustained viewership and potential cancellation. Yeah, I think the idea of a 4-episode miniseries is like perfect. Creative stagnation. A shorter format allows for more focus and potentially more impactful story arc. Budgetary concerns. Keeps production costs low. Fan service with a twist and nostalgia with a modern touch. You can offer a glimpse into the characters' lives years later, exploring how they've grown and changed. Also testing the waters. If successful, it could pave way for a longer revival or even a spin-off. Preserving the legacy. Avoiding a disappointed revival. A full season revival could risk tarnishing the show's original brilliance. A satisfying conclusion. A concise miniseries could provide a fitting and memorable conclusion to the Malcolm in the Middle saga. Of course, there's always unknowns. Will the original magic still be there? Will the actors' chemistry hold up? But with careful planning and a focus of quality over quantity, a 4-episode return could be a delightful treat for longtime fans. I agree.
I really hope that Mad TV, it was either Mad TV or SNL, one of them had a sketch, and I really hope this sketch is canon, where essentially it's the ending of Breaking Bad, and then Hal wakes up, and it turns out all of Breaking Bad was a dream within Hal, like a dream of Hal's, like a fever dream. He wakes up next to Lois, he's like, I had the weirdest dream where I was a chemist teacher, and I decided to start selling meth.
God. Let's see who else we got. We got My Friend Calls Me Joseph. With James Gunn rebooting Superman for the new DC universe, what if we get a Small Kingdom Come Superman series that's in a different universe? Perhaps bringing back Brandon Routh as Clark Kent Superman. This could be a follow-up to his return in Crisis crossover event we had a few years ago, which gave Brandon a second chance to play a version of the Man of Steel after Superman Return didn't do so well. Kingdom Come Superman, A New Hope series concept. After the events of Crisis, a grizzled, world-weary Kingdom Come Superman finds himself stranded on a parallel Earth, a world seemingly untouched by the ravages of time and conflict. He must learn to navigate this unfamiliar world, confront his past, and ultimately decide whether to embrace hope or succumb to despair. Series overview. This follows Brandon Routh's Kingdom Come Superman as he wakes up in a hospital bed, disoriented and confused. He has no memory of how he arrived on this Earth, a vibrant, technologically advanced world seemingly untouched by the cosmic events that shaped his own. This Earth has its own heroes, a new generation of champions inspired by the legends of the past, but they are far cry from the grim, jaded heroes he's accustomed to. Would you like this to be either in live action or animated?
I would at some point love a live action Kingdom Come adaptation, but I think like as we have kind of a new Superman movie at the moment, I wouldn't want anything like kind of going on at the same time. So I would say for this one, a fun idea. I think it should be animated at this time, but if it came out like 10 years from now, live action.
I wouldn't mind this in the animated form. I mean, the chances of this happening, I think, are pretty slim, honestly. Mm-hmm. But I think the concept alone is pretty cool. I think James Gunn, I think the CW Arrowverse days are beyond us. And I think he has mentioned he's not afraid to tackle Elseworld projects. But I mean, he says the scripts for those Elseworld projects have got to be top notch. It's just as good as the stuff for the DCU, if not better. And I just think, Brandon Routh had his hurrah as Superman. He's getting older by the year. I mean, granted, the Kingdom Come Superman is a older version of himself. So, to kind of see him continuing those would be really cool. But I think for me, if this were to ever happen, I don't think it would. But if it were to ever happen, I'll say animated. Jessica Fryman, do you think if we had gotten season 7 of Supergirl, we could have seen how Kara dealt with not having to lead a double life anymore? And do you think with Paramount getting the rights to Power Rangers, we could see all of the seasons on Paramount Plus? Ooh. Answer your first question. Yes, I'm sure that's probably what it would certainly tackle amongst other things for Supergirl. But also, Paramount getting the rights to Power Rangers? Could we see all the seasons on Paramount Plus? It's fascinating. I am curious as to if they would get the rights. I think right now they're on
Tubi.
Tubi, right?
Yep.
So I wonder if they own the streaming rights right now. I have no idea, or if it's just Hasbro. I wonder if they have it for a certain amount of years. Maybe after that contract expires, and maybe if Paramount were to get the rights, maybe then it would just return to Paramount. So yeah, I can see them dropping on Paramount Plus one day as part of their library.
I wonder if it's like if they see profit in it, and because I think it's like depending on whether something goes like to their streaming services, less about whether or not they own it, more about whether or not they think it'll bring in new subscriptions. And if not, they tend to license that kind of stuff out to other streaming services, like they did with Star Trek Prodigy. So I wonder if that's going to be the case with Power Rangers. So even if the license for Netflix does run out, they may still not have an interest in having it on their streaming service.
Yeah, you might be right. I do wonder what the profitability of it is at this point. Who knows? Yeah, because who knows? Maybe they decide to do. We're just gonna put it on our YouTube channel too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh so God, I hope not. It's so messy on YouTube. I just would rather it be on a streaming service.
Yeah, I agree. Marky Parko. Marky Parko. Sorry about that. Decision of whether to integrate Miles Morales into the MCU or keep him within his own Sony universe presents a creative dilemma. Some fans feel the MCU has been oversaturated with so many iconic characters, while joining the MCU offers the potential for exciting crossovers, shared resources, and a wider audience. It also risks further saturating the cinematic landscape and potentially compromising creative freedom. Conversely, staying within the Sony universe allows for greater artistic independence and the opportunity to preserve the unique tone and identity of the animated films. Ultimately, the ideal approach would be to find a balance that respects the character's essence while considering the evolving needs of both the franchise and the audience, perhaps by exploring innovative ways to bridge the gap between the animated and live action worlds. Should Miles Morales be introduced into the MCU or stick to his Sony universe with the same creative freedom and creators?
Right now, I don't really care too much about seeing a live action Miles Morales Spider-Man, only because I really just want Sony to focus on telling a or finishing up pretty much the Across the Spider-Verse storyline, or I guess in this new one, Beyond the Spider-Verse. I want that to be Sony's big priority to fix to finish that basically. And then afterwards, if we do eventually get live action Miles Morales, yes, I would prefer it be an MCU Miles Morales. Because every time Sony tries to do their own thing with the live action Miles Morales or live action Spider-Man, it just hasn't worked out when they try to open up their own universe. And since it's been the same producers since like the early 2000s, I don't see them learning from their mistakes because they don't seem to ever do that. So I would prefer personally if Miles Morales live action went to the MCU and Sony were the ones that were continuing to work on the animated side of things when it comes to the Miles Morales Spider-Man.
I will go opposite here. I do agree with you. I want them to focus very much on the Spider-Man projects that they have in front of them right now. But for me, I kind of want to see I don't know, bro. I want Sony to go and create Spider-Man movies again at some point in time. When I look at their time from Spider-Man, I mean, I feel like their first Spider-Man movies out the gate tend to be successful. They did pretty good with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man for the first two entries, and then they missed the mark with the third one. I thought The Amazing Spider-Man is a great film, really underrated. But the second one just missed the mark. So I do think that there's potential for them to make a great Spider-Man film. They just haven't proven themselves over like the past decade lately in regards to being able to do so. So I would be concerned in that regards. I mean, I don't know if I trust Amy Pascal or even the most recent Sony executive dude that came out and said, Madam Web was a great movie. The critics just wanted to talk shit about it. Like, no, bro, it was a terrible film. Okay. And so, maybe if by the time they're ready to do Miles Morales, if they have new management in charge, maybe Lord and Miller come back or have a bigger role in Sony Pictures when it comes to live action Spider-Man stuff, maybe allow them to helm it. But, but then again, look, I don't know how many more Tom Holland Spider-Man movies we have out of him. I'm expecting at least another trilogy. So I would expect 3 more films. So within that time, I wouldn't mind Miles Morales in the Sony universe and allowing them to kind of establish him and his own rogues. And then if they somehow want to do something and bring him into the MCU somehow, another alternate dimensional trip or something, then maybe. But, let MCU have their Peter Parker, let Sony have their Miles Morales and play with it as they will. But, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing Sony attempt to do another Spider-Man film, just maybe a couple years down the line.
Yeah.
Johnny Marrero, our last set of questions here. Are you excited for the upcoming Power Ranger movie for Paramount? I'm hesitantly optimistic. I'm fascinated in the direction that Paramount has been going with a lot of their properties lately. That's been really encouraging, whether it's been Sonic, whether it's been Transformers, whether it's been Star Trek. There's even Scream seems to be going relatively strong. So I do think that they have a good mindset in regards to making things fresh again and really taking creative chances to expand a lot of the franchises that they're on. So I do have a feeling that if this does hold true of Paramount getting the rights to Power Rangers again, that they have good intentions for it, I should say. Whether or not it's going to be good, that I don't know. But I think their intentions are good because I feel like they actually may have a plan of what they want to do with it. So I am excited for another Power Ranger movie under something like Paramount.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm right there with you. I am cautiously optimistic when it comes to a Paramount Power Rangers movie. The potential is definitely there. I just hope they see in the franchise what we as the fans see.
Do you think the upcoming Rugrats movie and PR movie will be inspired by Sonic to do better in terms of quality and CGI? After all, the Sonic films did great and are peak and made $1 billion. I think that the Rugrats movie for sure. I think it gives me a little bit more hope when it comes to the Rugrats movie, in regards to the maybe CGI designs. Even though they just had a CGI kind of animated series, if you will, I would expect them to maybe get a little bit better than the animated series per se for their Rugrats film. But I think if they follow the Sonic model and put quality over quantity or quality over special effects, they could have something special. So I do think it has it's a good sign. At least I believe in the Rugrats movie having a better potential than it would have before.
I don't know. I just don't see anything that about a live action Rugrats movie that'll work. But again, maybe that'll prove me wrong. But I do think that, yeah, in terms of quality, I think the Sonic movies will have a positive impact on the Power Rangers movie, definitely going forward. But yeah, when it comes to the Rugrats movie, I do not know what to expect from that.
Yeah, that's my biggest question would be, what's the audience? Clearly us millennials, Gen Xers. But can you make it fresh and new and humorous enough to draw in a current generation of it? So I do think it has a little bit of an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think would make a perfect cast for the upcoming Power Ranger movie? For me, I like to see Raina Valentinham from Cobra Kai as the Pink Ranger. But what do you think?
That's funny because I was gonna say Jolo
Maraduena
as the Red Ranger. Yeah, it's so funny. I don't know if I've actually pitched this to you yet, but I think I thought of a perfect way to reboot the Power Rangers if we're going to go the MMPR route, and it basically kind of take a similar approach that James Gunn is doing with his Superman movie, which is keep the aspect of the teenagers with attitudes being kind of like the goody two shoes, the characters that were meant for kids to look up to, right? Keep that, like, kind of, even though it sounds super campy, keep them like that, but put them in a realistic high school setting. Show like these are 5 characters that want to be good people, but they're in high school, and people in high school are just naturally terrible people. And so it's just hard to be a good person when you're in a high school environment like that. I think that could make for a fascinating, not only like a great, like, kind of high school movie, but then when you put those lessons that they learn from school or, from saving the world, and, you take basically the lessons they learn from saving the world and helps them improve their school, or same with the lessons they learn from school, which help them save the world in the long run. I think that's where you could have a really cool, like, kind of concept going.
I dig that. I actually really dig that. I would be completely open to that. I don't really know if I have an entire I don't know if I have an entire cast, but for some reason the person that lately has been jumping out at me is the act. I don't even know how old he is now, but the actor that played Bruce Wayne from Gotham, David Mazouz, I believe.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how old he is. Maybe he's in that range of being able to be old enough. He did end up becoming a little bit of a Batman, I think, in the final seasons of Gotham a little bit, but I wouldn't mind seeing him. I don't even know if I've seen him in anything since then. So give Homeboy a shot. Why not?
Yeah, I actually don't think I've seen him in anything since Gotham too. That'd be kind of a cool comeback for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. So yeah, he popped up in my head, so I wouldn't mind seeing him. I was like, who's a young actor that I know? I don't really follow, like, the ABC Disney stuff anymore or whatnot. So I don't really know like young up and coming actors that can fit that teenagers with attitude role. But I don't know how old David is at this point in his career, but he's one that came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. Who would you like to see fan cast in the upcoming Power Ranger movie itself? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. But that will do it for all of our live viewer questions today. So we appreciate it, as always, y'all, for certainly coming through each and every week, giving us some great conversation pieces for sure. And next week I am going to be in Georgia. So there may not be A+ Hero Report for you guys next week. So no Hero Report next Sunday on the 19th, but we will be back January 26th. So taking about a week hiatus, but I will be back after our return from Georgia. So again, no Hero Report on the 19th, but we'll be back on the 26th. Outside of that, any other content here this week you can expect from us? Thursday night will in fact be our Star Wars Skeleton Crew season finale live review and discussion at 10 p.m. Central Time. Certainly join us then. And then maybe if we have a couple of trailers or big news that winds up dropping either Monday or Tuesday, maybe I'll do a video for you guys before I leave town on Wednesday. And then maybe some reels. Maybe I'll post some stuff for you guys throughout the week, some trailers, whatever the case may be. But yeah, keep an eye out on that. Stuart, if people want to find you on social media, man, where can they find you?
You guys can find me at TurboStew01 over on Instagram and Letterboxd. And of course, you guys can find me here every Sunday on A+ Hero Report. And of course, next Thursday for our review of Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. But it should be a full council too. Myself, Stuart, Will, and Crystal all coming together to give our final thoughts on the season. And it's been a remarkable show so far. If you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, I would recommend it. It's been a lot of fun. I've really been enjoying it. I think we've been grading it relatively well too, also. So I'm looking forward to seeing if it sticks the landing. But guys, that will do it for us. If you want to follow us on social media, everywhere at A+ Opinions, very active, especially over on our Facebook page, our main page, where all throughout the week we drop news, trailers, photos, behind the scenes, featurettes, shorts, reels, things like that for you guys to certainly enjoy. And then usually at the end of the week, that's where we pull 6 topics to discuss for you here on our YouTube page. We're also over on TikTok at Hero Report. You can also check us out on BlueSky at heroreport.bsky.social. All the links and handles are in the description box below for you guys. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. We are continuing to grow around here, and also click that bell notification so when we drop brand new videos, you'll certainly be notified. But that will do it for us here, y'all. We'll certainly see you in 2 weeks, but until then, do us a big favor as always. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.